Rise of the Outcasts. Havermouth has always been a quiet town, until the explosion at the high school unleashed chaos that no one could have imagined. Zombies, rogue shapeshifters, and other supernatural threats now stalk the streets, while the humans struggle to survive without power, medicine, or guidance. Amid the chaos, the Triquetra Talen, and their allies find themselves divided, torn between loyalties, survival, and the secrets they've been sworn to protect. The Van Helsings, a ruthless order determined to control every supernatural being in town, tighten their grip, leaving the pack fractured and vulnerable. As battles erupt, alliances shift, and the supernatural world edges ever closer to exposure, the pack must decide: fight together, or watch everything they love crumble. Friendships will be tested, love will be forged in fire, and survival may demand choices no one is ready to make. In a city teetering between chaos and revelation, can the outcasts rise strong enough to reclaim Havermouth, or will the darkness consume them all? Chapter 1. The shattered piece. Havermouth had always worn the mask of serenity, a small town cradled between rolling hills. Its streets quiet, its nights gentle with the hum of cicadas. But that illusion shattered in an instant. The explosion at the high school tore through the night like a jagged scream, sending concrete and glass into the air, scattering the sleeping town into chaos. Flames licked the edges of the old brick buildings, smoke curling into the sky like dark fingers reaching for the stars. Aislen stood at the edge of the town square. Her sense is straining, her breath ragged. The air carried a scent she had never forgotten: fear. But beneath it was something else, something older, more insidious. Her wolf shifted restlessly inside her, muscles tensing as she scanned the shadows for movement. Every instinct screamed danger, and yet she couldn't see the source. Not again, Talen muttered beside her, his hand gripping the hilt of a dagger that had seen far too many battles. His eyes, sharp and wary, swept over the streets, lingering on the figures stumbling through the smoke. Some were human, some not. The first wave had already arrived, zombies drawn from the explosion as chaos, their limbs twisted and jerky, eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. Others moved with eerie grace, shapeshifters gone rogue, their forms unstable, snarling as they lunged at anything in reach. Havermouth was no longer a town. It was a battlefield. "People are trapped," Aislen said, her voice tight with urgency. "We need to get them out, before Van Helsing take control." Talen's jaw tightened. And before those things kill them, the Van Helsings had been a shadow over the supernatural world for decades. Ruthless, meticulous, and unrelenting, they believed that every creature beyond humanity must be contained or eradicated. Now, with Havermouth in chaos, their grip was tightening faster than the pack could respond. Aislen took a deep breath. Focusing on the wolf within, she could feel the trembling threads of the town as energy, fear of humans, the panic of creatures untrained or unaligned. Her wolf flickered, a silent warning. Something was moving through the ruins, deliberate, watching, waiting. Not one of the dead, not one of the rogue shapeshifters. Something smarter, something patient. The distant wail of sirens mingled with the crackling of fires. Windows shattered as the undead clawed their way through walls, dragging twisted bodies into the streets. People ran, screamed, collapsed. Helena's hands glowed faintly as she invoked the protective wards she had been taught to use, casting shimmering barriers over a group of trapped students in the crumbling library. The walls shivered, holding fast as the first wave of creatures slammed against them. Talen moved beside her, slicing through an approaching zombie with precision, his eyes darting constantly to the surrounding streets. Every sound, every shadow could signal another attack. The pack needed to regroup, to find a safe stronghold, but the town itself was collapsing. "Over there," Aislen hissed, pointing to the edge of the square. A flash of movement, teenier shapeshifter, faster and stronger than the others. Its form blurring between wolf and human, was heading straight for the barricade. It is not just chaos. Someone is leading them. Talen's expression darkened. Van Helsing. Or worse, someone from inside the pack. Aislen's heart sank. The thought alone made her stomach twist. The pack had been fractured before, divided by secrecy and loyalty, but never like this. Never with lives hanging by a thread while the world collapsed around them. A deafening roar split the night. Not human. Not undead. Something colossal, far beyond anything they had faced before, was approaching from the northern end of town. Trees shook as the creature tore through the streets, scattering debris and screaming civilians alike. Elena's wolf lunged forward, instinct screaming at her to strike. But she held back, sensing the pattern beneath the chaos. There was a rhythm to the destruction, a deliberate orchestration. Someone was testing them. Someone was watching. Talen grabbed her arm. "We need a plan. Now," but Aislen couldn't speak. The night had changed. The Havermouth they knew was gone. In its place was a crucible of fire and shadow. Where survival demanded choices, she wasn't sure she was ready to make. And as she met Talen's eyes, she knew this was only the beginning. The explosion had revealed something far worse than fire and death. It had revealed the fragile balance of the world around them, the storm that was coming. Somewhere in the darkness, the eyes of the Van Helsings glinted like knives. Somewhere else, the pack of secrets whispered of betrayal. And in the middle of it all, Aislen understood one truth with absolute clarity. In Havermouth, no one would survive untouched. Not even the outcasts. Chapter 2, Secrets in the Shadows. Smoke hung low over the streets, curling around broken lampposts and the jagged edges of shattered windows. The fires cast a flickering glow that made the shadows writhe as if a Levi. Aislen moved silently among them, senses straining. Wolf attuned to every heartbeat of the town. Talen stayed close, scanning the alleyways and rooftops with a predator's precision. "The students are safe for now," he muttered, voice tight. "But this is only the beginning. Whoever is orchestrating this isn't done testing us." Aislen's jaw tightened. She had felt the unnatural precision in the chaos last night, way the zombies and rogue shapeshifters moved with coordinated intent. This wasn't a random destruction. Someone, or something, was behind it, probing the pack's defenses, waiting for the right moment to strike harder. "Inside the library," she said, voice low. "The wards are holding. But the energy here, it has tainted. Like someone has been manipulating the supernatural forces inside the town for months." "Maybe longer," Talen's narrowed. "Are you saying this isn't just Van Helsing?" Aislen shook her head. "Not entirely. They revolved, yes, but there is someone else. Someone who knows us, knows the pack. And they're playing a dangerous game." The two moved toward the library, ducking under the skeletal remains of streetlights and shattered store signs. The faint groans of the undead echoed from the shadows, interspersed with distant screams from civilians trapped in collapsed buildings. Every step was a dance between caution and urgency. Inside, the students huddled behind shimmering protective wards. Their wide eyes reflected fear, confusion, and a fragile hope that the pack would keep them alive. Aislen knelt beside them, wolf instincts calming the shaking children with subtle pulses of energy, guiding them through the terror. Talen checked the perimeter, dagger ready. "We can't stay here long. We need a secure stronghold. If Van Helsing, Jas or whoever is behind this, knows we're here." The ATVL strike before dawn. Aislen's gaze flicked toward a narrow staircase leading to the library's basement. "We'll move them down there. Old tunnels. They connect to the town's underground passages. Safe for now, at least until we figure out who is orchestrating this," as the children followed her. A subtle shift in the shadows caught Aislen's attention. Something moved just beyond the reach of the firelight. A figure watching, silent, unblinking. Her wolf growled low in her chest, but when she turned fully, the figure had vanished. "Did you see that?" she whispered. Talen shook his head. "Probably just a stray. Keep moving," but Aislen knew better. The figure was deliberate, packed patient. Someone with intimate knowledge of the pack's routines, of Havermouth's every hidden corner. Someone who could manipulate chaos without revealing themselves. The children descended into the tunnels, their footsteps echoing off damp stone walls. Aislen felt the weight of responsibility pressing down, heavier than the smoke-filled streets above. Her wolf whispered warnings, sensed treachery in every shadow. And then came the unmistakable sound, a soft click, followed by a whisper in the darkness. You shouldn't have come here. Aislen froze, every instinct screaming at her. Talen's hand was on her shoulder, ready to strike, but even he looked uncertain. The voice was familiar, intimate, and impossible to place. From the corner of the tunnel, a figure stepped forward, cloaked in the shadows. The firelight from above barely touched them. But the aura was unmistakable: power, control, and danger that stretched far beyond the normal supernatural hierarchy. Ailen's wolf growled, teeth bared, muscles tensing for a fight. Who are you? She demanded. Voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The figure tilted their head, voice smooth, measured, carrying the weight of secrets and unspoken knowledge. Someone who knows the pack's every heartbeat. And someone who has been waiting for the perfect moment. Talen's grip tightened on his dagger. If you're here to play games, the figure's gaze shifted, sharp and cutting. I don't play games. I control them. Aislen felt a chill run down her spine. Every instinct screamed danger. Every memory of the town, the Pashi, the fires, the shadows, ear pointed to one truth: the war for Havermouth had only just begun. And the enemy was closer than anyone suspected. Show yourself, Aislen demanded, wolf snarling in the depths of her chest. The figure smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. In time, Pine, they said. But not yet. First, you must survive the night, and with that, the shadows shifted again, swallowing the figure, leaving only the echo of their presence and the sense that Havermouth's fate, Jur the Pacas, was hanging by a fragile thread. Aislen exhaled slowly, calming her wolf, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. Talen looked at her, unspoken questions in his eyes. We need to move faster, she said, determination hardening in her chest. The night isn't safe, and someone knows exactly where we are, above them. The flames of the town flickered in the darkness, a reminder that survival was no longer guaranteed, and that Havermouth's secrets were about to be unearthed in fire, shadow, and blood. Chapter 3. Van Helsing's grip. The town of Havermouth trembled under the heavy weight of chaos. Smoke and ash clung to the buildings, and the acrid scent of burning wood filled the air. Aislen and Talen moved swiftly through the underground tunnels, the soft echo of their footsteps blending with the distant cries from above. Every sense was alert. Every instinct whispered caution. Van Helsing, Talen muttered, voice low. They're already here. They're combing the streets, searching for survivors. They're ruthless, no hesitation. No mercy. Ailen's wolf shivered beneath her skin. The thought of their relentless precision made her stomach knot. The Van Helsings were not ordinary hunters. They were disciplined, cold, and fanatical, trained to identify and eradicate every supernatural being that threatened the human order. Havermouth had been their testing ground for decades, and now the explosion had given them free rein. They reached the Maintenance Junction, a narrow stone corridor lined with ancient bricks. The walls hummed faintly with residual energy from protective wards Aislen had helped cast years ago. She touched them lightly, feeling the vibration of the magic beneath her fingers. The wards are holding, she said, but just barely. If Van Helsing's men push too hard, they'll collapse. Talen's eyes narrowed. We can't risk staying here. We need the pack to regroup fast. The weight of responsibility pressed down on Aislen. Every decision could mean life or death. She could feel the threads of the Pecas energy unraveling around her. Tension coiling in every wolf and shifter who had survived the night. Somewhere above civilians were trapped. Supernatural creatures wandered unchecked, and the Van Helsings moved like a shadow over the city. As they emerged into a side chamber, forgotten maintenance room, repurposed for temporary refuge, Aislen gathered the surviving members of the pack close. Their faces were pale, eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. Wolves paced restlessly, claws clicking on the stone floors, nostrils flaring at every shift in the air. Listen carefully, Aislen began, her voice steady despite the pounding in her chest. We're facing more than just chaos. Van Helsing's men are here, and they know our weaknesses. But worse, there is someone inside who is manipulating everything. Someone who knows us. A low murmur rippled through the group. Talen stepped forward, his expression grim. We've been divided before, but this time, if we don't act together, we won't survive. Not the town. Not the pack. Alana's wolf shifted beneath her skin, muscles coiling, instincts screaming. She could sense the fear and desperation in every member of the pack, but also their loyalty, fragile though it was. They needed guidance. They needed strategy. And they needed courage. She moved to a crude map into the wall, tracing her fingers over the streets and tunnels. We'll split in 2 teams, she explained, covering all exits and securing civilians. One group handles containment of rogue creatures. Another monitors the streets for Van Helsing activity. And Talen, she paused, meeting his eyes. You and I will track the source of this manipulation. Whoever is orchestrating these attacks knows our every move. We find them, and we end this. Talen nodded, a mixture of determination and concern in his gaze. Agreed. But if this is someone inside the pack? His voice trailed off. The unspoken possibility of betrayal hung heavy in the air. Ilana's jaw tightened. The last thing they needed was internal treachery. Yet she couldn't ignore the flicker she had felt the night before, presence, watching, calculating. It had been deliberate. Methodical. And it wasn't human. Hours passed as the teams moved into position. The city above burned. Screams echoing through the streets. The Van Helsings were efficient, hunting methodically, exploiting every weakness in the pack's defenses. But even as chaos reigned, Aislen and Talen raced a thread through the shadows, following subtle disturbances in the magic and the unnatural movements of rogue creatures. Finally, they reached a derelict warehouse at the edge of town. The building was silent. Shadows stretching across broken walls like skeletal fingers. Something about it screamed anticipation, as though the very structure was waiting for their arrival. This is it, Aislen whispered, wolf trembling with both excitement and fear. The source of the manipulation is here. Talen glanced around the abandoned interior. No signs yet, but we're close. I can feel it. A faint click echoed from the darkness, a deliberate, almost playful sound. A figure stepped forward, their face obscured by shadows. Even without seeing them clearly, the aura of control and menace was undeniable. Welcome, the figure said, voice low and smooth. Yuvena finally arrived, Elena's wolf growled, instincts flaring, muscles coiling for attack. Show yourself, she demanded, voice unwavering. We're done playing your games. The figure's eyes glinted in the dim light, sharp, calculating. Games? They said, voice lilting with amusement. No, my dear. This is survival. And you've only just begun. Outside, the town smoldered, a testament to destruction. Inside, Havermouth is future, the fate of the pack hung in delicate, perilous balance. And in that silent, shadowed warehouse, Aislen understood one undeniable truth. To save her people, she would have to confront not only the Van Helsings, but the hidden enemy who knew them better than they knew themselves. The war for Havermouth had begun. Chapter 4. The First Strike. The first light of dawn barely filtered through the thick clouds above Havermouth. Smoke curled lazily from ruined rooftops, painting the streets in shades of gray and orange. Silence reigned in some corners, but it was a fragile, dangerous quiet. Every shadow held potential threat. Every distant sound could signal the Van Helsing's approach. Aislen crouched on the roof of a crumbling building, her eyes scanning the streets below. Talen had positioned himself across the alley, the tension in his stance almost palpable. Wolves prowled silently, blending with the rubble, their nostrils flaring to catch any scent of movement. The pack was divided, yet determined. Every survivor's energy hummed with anticipation, nerves tightly coiled. The Van Helsings are moving faster than we anticipated, Talen murmured, voice low. They've taken the western sector. Civilians are trapped in the northern quarter. If we don't act now, they'll be exposed. We can't afford casualties. Ailena's lips pressed into a thin line. She could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on her chest, threatening to suffocate her. Every decision mattered. Every hesitation could cost lives. She flexed her fingers, feeling the faint pulse of her wolf beneath her skin. A steady rhythm grounding her. Spread out, she instructed. Contain the rogues, protect civilians, and monitor Van Helsing movement. And Talen, we track the manipulator. They're behind all of this. We find them. We end it, the pack dispersed like shadows melting into the ruins. Wolves darted along alleyways. Shifters moved through the debris with silent precision, and Aislen and Talen slipped into the maze of streets. Eyes and ears alert. Minutes stretched into tense hours. Smoke thickened, acrid and suffocating, stinging their eyes. Then came the first attack. A low, guttural roar echoed from the intersection ahead, followed by a series of violent crashes. Rogue creatures, hybrids twisted by unknown forces, emerged from the shadows. Their eyes glowed with unnatural light. Claws tearing through stone and steel with terrifying ease. Ailena's wolf surged, muscles coiling instinctively. She launched herself from the rooftop, landing with silent precision behind the nearest creature. With a swift motion, she struck, her claws ripping through the twisted hybrid, its screech echoing through the empty street. Talen was already in motion beside her, moving like a shadow, blades flashing in the dim light. Focus on the pack's perimeter, he shouted. We can't let them split us up. The battle erupted with chaotic intensity. Wolves and shifters fought alongside humans caught in the fray, creating a living shield around the trapped civilians. Every strike, every leap, every snarl was a testament to survival, a ballet of violence choreographed by desperation. From the corner of her vision, Aislen noticed subtle patterns in the rogue attacks. They weren't a random, teak were coordinated. Someone was directing them, manipulating the chaos with terrifying precision. A chill ran down her spine. The manipulator was closer than they had anticipated, watching their every move, anticipating their strategy. A scream ripped through the street. A civilian had been cornered, and one of the hybrids lunged, claws extended. Aislen reacted instantly, her wolf taking over in a blur of motion. She intercepted the creature mid-leap, slamming it against a crumbling wall. Pain shot through her shoulder, but adrenaline drowned it out. Talen's voice cut through the chaos. Aislen, behind you. She spun just in time to see another hybrid barreling toward her. Without hesitation, she struck, her movements precise and lethal. The creature collapsed, leaving a trail of smoke and ash. But even as the immediate threat was neutralized, Aislen felt it, another ripple, subtle yet undeniable. The manipulator was observing, testing, waiting. The Van Helsing's presence was still a constant shadow in the distance, tightening the noose around Havermouth. The battle slowed. Rogue creatures retreating into hidden alleyways as quickly as they had appeared. Wolves and shifters regrouped, breaths heavy, formatted with dust and blood. Civilians huddled in the shadows, their eyes wide with fear and relief. Aislen wiped blood from her arm, muscles trembling. This was just the beginning, she muttered, voice barely above a whisper. They're testing us, the manipulator. They're not finished yet. Talen placed a firm hand on her shoulder. Then we prepare, we anticipate, and we strike back. The city lay in ruins, yet in the heart of Havermouth. Hope flickered, a fragile ember of defiance against the darkness, but Aislen knew that for every victory there would be a counter, and for every breath of relief, the shadow of betrayal and danger loomed closer. Outside. In the distance, the Van Helsings observed silently, calculating their next move. And in the hidden corridors of the town, the manipulator smiled, knowing the pack had no idea how close they were to the edge. Havermouth had survived the first strike. But the war was far from over. Chapter 5, Shadows. Within night had fallen again over Havermouth, but this time the darkness felt heavier, almost oppressive. Smoke still lingered from the morning chaos, curling through the broken streets like restless spirits. Every shadow seemed to stretch longer, hiding more than just the debris and ruin. Aislen moved cautiously along the alleyways, senses stretched taut, aware that the danger lurking outside might now have a reflection within their own walls. The first strike had been violent, but it had also revealed something far more unsettling. The rogue attacks were too precise, too coordinated. Someone within the pack's center, at least someone close, was feeding the enemy information. Ailen's got twisted with the realization. Trust, already fragile, was now a weapon turned inward. Talen joined her silently, his dark eyes scanning every doorway, every broken window. "I don't like this," he murmured. "Too easy for them to anticipate our moves." "Too clean," Aislen nodded, her jaw tight. "It is not just the rogues. Someone is guiding them. Someone we call ally is giving them an edge. We need to find them before it is too late." They moved together through the shadows, moving toward the Paquet's hidden command center, a makeshift war room that had been converted from the old municipal library. Walls were lined with maps, notes, and hastily sketched diagrams. Wolves and shifters worked silently, coordinating defense routes, supplies, and lookout schedules. But even here, whispers traveled faster than the maps could predict. A sudden sound, a soft scrape, almost imperceptible, made Ailen's wolf flare. She froze, muscles coiling like steel springs. Talen tensed beside her, hand inching toward the hilt of his blade. The alley was empty, yet the instinctual unease did not abate. "Someone is here," she whispered. Her eyes darted to the shadows between the ruined buildings. Watching us, Talen's gaze followed hers, or listening, they waited, breaths slow but controlled. The tension almost physical, and then a faint whisper carried on the wind. "You think you can stop it?" The words sliced through the night, cold and deliberate. Both shifters moved in unison, ready to strike, but no one emerged. The voice was gone, leaving only the echo of dread behind. Inside the command center, Ailen's mind raced. Every member of the pack could be suspect, yet accusing the wrong person could tear them apart. She had to rely on instincts honed from years of tracking and surviving, a wolf's intuition sharpened by fire and loss. She gathered the key lieutenants. "Listen carefully," she said, voice low, commanding attention without raising panic. "We have an insider. Someone close is feeding information to the rogues. Every strike is timed. Every civilian at risk because of it. From this moment, we operate on suspicion and observation. Nothing is too small to ignore. We find them before they find us." Murmurs of unease spread, but no one dared question her. The pack knew the stakes. TQ could feel the pulse of fear and uncertainty vibrating in the air. Meanwhile, outside the Van Helsings, patrols moved closer, unaware of the subtle fracture forming inside the pack. Aislen and Talen split to observe the perimeter, as Aislen crouched behind the remnants of a brick wall. Her eyes caught movement at the far end of the street, shadowed and deliberate. A figure slipped between the ruins, blending seamlessly with the debris. Too human to be rogue, too controlled to be an enemy in plain sight. Her wolf growled low, a rumble that vibrated through her chest. She signaled Talen. Together, they followed, silent as ghosts. The figure moved with purpose, slipping into an abandoned warehouse. Aislen peered through the cracked doorway. Inside, shadows danced around a central figure, hunched over some sort of device, hands moving across papers and maps. The whispers had a face. And suddenly, the invisible threat became terrifyingly tangible. Talen's voice was a low hiss. "We found them," Ailen's wolf flared. Instincts screaming that this confrontation would determine more than just survival, Twither would reveal the true depth of betrayal within Havermouth. Whoever had been guiding the rogues had been patient, clever, and cruel. Now, cornered in the dim light, they had nowhere left to hide. She stepped forward, letting the shadows of her presence fill the doorway. "Show yourself," she commanded. "We know you've just been working with them. Tell me why. Or the pack will decide your fate." The figure froze, then slowly turned, revealing a face that sent a jolt of recognition through Aislen. Eyes wide, calculating, yet tinged with a flicker of fear. The manipulator had been closer than anyone suspected, and as the night deepened around them, Havermouth held its breath, knowing that this revelation could either be the key to survival or the spark that ignited total destruction. Chapter 6. The Confrontation. The warehouse smelled of dust, rust, and something acrid, almost metallic. Shadows stretched across the broken floorboards, twisting in the flickering light of a single dangling bulb. Ailen's boots made no sound as she stepped inside, the pack's wolves forming a protective circle behind her. Talen mirrored her movements, eyes sharp, sarked muscles coiled for action. The manipulator stood rigid, hands frozen over scattered papers and maps. Aislen could see the faint tremor in their fingers, mask slipping for the first time. "You've been feeding them," she said, voice even but heavy with accusation. "Every attack, every civilian at risk." "Why?" The figure's gaze flicked between Aislen and Talen, calculating, weighing escape against confession. Silence stretched, almost unbearable, broken only by the faint drip of water from a rusted pipe. I didn't think it would come to this," the manipulator admitted finally, voice low, tracks trembling with suppressed guilt. "I thought I could control it. I thought I could protect them while keeping the pack safe." "Protect who?" Aislen demanded, her wolf bristling beneath her skin. "Who were you protecting by endangering everyone else?" The manipulator swallowed hard, eyes darting to the maps littering the floor. "Not everyone, just my family. If the Van Helsings knew what I knew, they'd destroy us first." Talen's jaw tightened. "And the rest of Havermouth? Were they collateral damage?" His voice was sharp, but controlled, each word measured, like a blade ready to strike. The figure hesitated, caught between defiance and fear. Finally, a confession slipped out. I couldn't trust anyone else. "I thought I was helping. I didn't realize how far it would go," Aislen's wolf growled low. A rumble of frustration and betrayal. "Helping by hiding in shadows. By letting them attack innocents. You've compromised every life here." The manipulator's shoulders slumped, the fight draining from them. I didn't know how else to do it. I only wanted to buy time until we could." Their voice broke, and for a moment, vulnerability replaced cunning. Aislen snarled. "Time? Time for what? Every moment you hesitated. Every secret you kept. More blood was spilled. And now? Now we have to clean up your mistakes." The tension in the room was palpable. The wolves, growls vibrating through the floorboards. Outside, the distant sounds of the Van Helsing's patrols reminded everyone that danger had not paused for their moral reckoning. Talen stepped forward. "Decide. Do you stand with the pack say fully and honestly? Or do you continue this deception and leave us no choice but to act?" The manipulator swallowed, eyes darting nervously, calculating the risk. Finally, a deep breath, shaky but resolute. I stand with the pack. I will tell you everything, every move, every plan the rogues have made. I want to help fix what I've done." Aislen's wolf flared, tension still coiled tightly, but she nodded slightly. "This is your chance. Don't waste it. Every second from now on counts." The confession unlocked something in the Peikai and Nazi truce. A fragile thread of trust woven in the midst of betrayal. Wolves shifted, muscles tensing and relaxing, instincts aligning with renewed purpose. But Aislen knew the truth. The manipulator's knowledge was only part of the battle. The Van Helsings were still approaching, the rogues still striking in the shadows. And the tension within Havermouth had not eased. Twitcher had only evolved, as they gathered around the maps, poring over every attack, every safe zone, and every potential weakness. Aislen felt the pulse of her wolf sinking with the pack. Every heartbeat was a reminder. Survival required unity, strategy, and a willingness to confront the darkness, both within and without. The night stretched on. But for the first time since the chaos began, the pack had a plan. And as Aislen looked out the broken windows at the smoke-filled horizon, she knew that the confrontation was only the beginning. The true war had yet to begin. Chapter 7. Lines in the Dark. The town of Havermouth seemed suspended between worlds. Streets that had once carried laughter and mundane chatter now echoed with the groans of broken infrastructure and the uneasy footfalls of survivors. Fires still burned in pockets across the city, smoke twisting skyward like a warning banner. The Van Helsing's influence pressed from the north, their patrols methodical and merciless, while rogue creatures moved like shadows in the periphery, testing defenses and exploiting every weakness. Inside the pack's temporary command center, Aislen raced her finger across a map, marking the points of the most recent attacks. Each strike revealed patterns, lines that intersected, loops, and dead ends, yet none of them were random. Someone had been orchestrating them with precision. The manipulator, though newly loyal, could only offer so much insight. Havermouth was a labyrinth, and every alleyway hid potential death. Talen leaned close, even voice low. They're probing us, looking for fractures. They want to see who we are at our weakest. And then they strike there. Ailen's gaze hardened. Then we give them none. We show them strength. But we move in the dark, where they least expect it. Shadow and surprise will be our allies, the pack assembled for a briefing. Wolves shifted impatiently, muscles tense, hens' ears twitching at every sound. Some still whispered doubts. Could they trust the manipulator? Could anyone be trusted in this fractured town? But the pack needed cohesion, and hesitation was a luxury they couldn't afford. Aislen addressed them, her voice steady, carrying authority and conviction. Listen carefully. We know where the rogues strike, but we do not yet know the full scope. Every team has a line to hold. Every wolf has a position. Tonight, we operate in silence, in shadows. Watch, hatch, listen. And strike only when it counts. The pack moved out in squads, navigating the streets with uncanny precision. Ailen's squad skirted the eastern blocks, where collapsed buildings formed narrow corridors of concealment. Her wolf senses pricked at every movement. A flicker of shadow, a sound out of sync with the wind. Danger was never far. But awareness made it navigable. Talen stayed close, eyes scanning the rooftops and alleyways. Something's off, he murmured. Too quiet. Aislen didn't he respond immediately. Her focus was drawn to the movement in the distance, a faint glimmer of reflected light, a figure darting between ruins. Her wolf growled, warning her of both intent and peril. They rear here, she whispered, signaling the squad to fan out silently. The figure moved with calculated stealth. But Aislen could sense the rhythm of its approach, the way it probed for openings without exposing itself. She mirrored the movements, shadow to shadow, step for step, waiting for the perfect moment. Suddenly, the rogue launched a swift attack, emerging from a side street with a creature at their side, a hybrid, half-daff human, half-daff beast. Teeth bared and eyes glowing with unnatural light. The squad reacted instantly, forming a protective circle around Aislen. Wolves lunged, claws flashing, teeth snapping in precise strikes. The hybrid faltered under their combined force, but the rogue escaped into the darkness, laughter echoing off the crumbling walls. Ailen's chest heaved with controlled fury. Wolf instincts flaring. This was a warning, she said grimly. They're testing us. And they want to see if we break under pressure. Talen's gaze was hard, scanning the horizon. Then we don't show weakness. We take the initiative. Shadow and speed will be our answer. Hours passed intense vigilance. Patrols intercepted minor rogue incursions, every encounter reinforcing the pack's growing rhythm of cooperation and trust. Yet, in the background, the figure of the manipulator lingered in Ailen's mind, reminder that the enemy could strike not just from outside, but from within. By midnight, the city seemed temporarily still. The pack regrouped, catching their breath in the ruined square that had become their temporary stronghold. Fires reflected in their eyes, shadows playing across their determined faces. Havermouth was battered, but not broken. Aislen stood in the center, surveying her pack. Tonight, we survived, she said quietly. Wolf sense is still alert to every whisper of movement. But survival alone is not enough. We need strategy, foresight, and the courage to act before they can strike again. We are lines in the dark, moving unseen, but ready to strike. The wolves murmured agreement, the tension easing slightly, replaced by focused resolve. The night was far from over, and the Van Helsings and rogues were still out there, waiting. But for now, Havermouth had its defenders, united in purpose, ready to turn shadow into strength. Outside, in the darkness, the rogue watched from the rooftops, calculating. Every move had been observed, every response measured. The game had changed, but the next strike would come soon, and Havermouth would have to be ready. Chapter 8. Fires of Havermouth smoke hung thick over the skyline, a suffocating veil that blurred the edges of crumbling buildings and twisted streets. Havermouth was a city of shadows now, where every flicker of flame revealed both danger and opportunity. The Van Helsings had tightened their grip, patrols cutting through the ruins like cold blades, and rogue creatures prowled every alley. Testing defenses and striking at the smallest weakness, Aislen stood atop a burned-out car, surveying the chaos with a trained eye. Flames licked the walls of a collapsed apartment building across the street. Reflecting in her amber eyes, wolves shifted around her, restless but focused. Their instinct coiled tight like springs ready to snap. She could feel the pulse of the city, every tremor in the rubble, every whisper of wind carrying information she and her pack needed. Talen, south side, she commanded, pointing toward a narrow alley where movement had flickered moments ago. Hybrid spotted. Could be scouting for the rogues. Talen moved without hesitation, disappearing into the shadows with 2 other wolves. The air was electric, charged with the tension of anticipation and survival. Aislen's own wolf prowled beneath her skin, every muscle primed for the confrontation she knew was coming. Suddenly, a scream split the night, raw and desperate. Civilians, those who had survived the initial chaos, were trapped between Van Helsing patrols and rogue hybrids. Aislen's pack surged forward, moving like liquid shadows, rescuing the vulnerable while striking with precision at their attackers. Aislen found herself face to face with a hybrid. Its eyes glowing unnaturally, teeth bared, the fight was brutal but measured. Every strike and dodge a reflection of years of training, instinct, and desperation. When she finally overpowered it, the hybrid lay still, and Aislen allowed herself a momentary breath, chest heaving, curs ringing with the chaos around her. From across the street, a Van Helsing agent raised a weapon, mistaking Aislen's squad for rogues. Time slowed in a heartbeat, her wolf screaming a warning. With a swift leap, she landed between the agent and her pack's eyes blazing. "We are not your enemies," she shouted, voice carrying over the crackle of fire. The agent hesitated, reassessing, and lowered their weapon just as Talen appeared to explain the situation. But there was no time to linger. Fire spread quickly, driven by wind and debris. The pack moved with urgency, rescuing those trapped, forming defensive lines to shield survivors, and clearing paths for evacuation. Every moment counted, every decision a matter of life or death. Amid the chaos, Aislen caught sight of the rogue who had tested them earlier. They moved like a shadow, orchestrating attacks, signaling hybrids, and exploiting every fracture in the pack's defense. Her pulse quickened, not just with fear, but with the clarity of recognition. They were the architect of Havermouth's torment, and now Aislen knew she had to confront them directly if the city was to survive. Talen returned to her side, breathless but determined. "They're consolidating," he said, pointing toward the eastern edge of the city. "We can intercept, but it is risky. Fire." "Patrols, hybrids, all against us," Aislen nodded, wolf instincts screaming the same truth. "Then we create our own path. We use the fire, the shadows, the panic. Let Havermouth is chaos be our weapon as well as theirs." The pack moved in unison, a river of motion and purpose through the burning streets. Flames reflected off their eyes, casting long shadows, a haunting dance of survival and defiance. Every encounter with rogues, hybrids, and Van Helsing patrols tested their coordination and resolve, but the pack held, each member trusting instincts, experience, and each other. Hours passed, and by dawn, the city's fires had begun to die down, smoke still curling skyward. Havermouth bore scars that would last long after the night ended, but the pack had survived. The rogue's presence remained a threat, looming in the shadows, yet Aislen had gained valuable insight into their tactics, patterns, and motives. Standing amid the rubble, Aislen looked at her pack. Exhaustion heavy in their bodies but unbroken in their eyes. "Tonight, we held the line," she said quietly, voice carrying both relief and warning. "But the war is far from over. We need to strike next, decisively." Before they recover and strike again, Talen placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying and supportive. "We'll be ready. Whatever comes, we face it together." The sun rose over Havermouth, burning through the lingering smoke, casting harsh light over a city that had been tested and survived. But even in daylight, Aislen knew the real battle was just beginning, and the rogue who haunted the night would not rest, either. Chapter 9. The rogue's gambit, the city had not slept. Smoke still curled from blackened streets. And the silence that settled over Havermouth was deceptive, heavy with anticipation. Aislen moved along the elevated rooftops, her gaze sweeping the horizon. Every shadow, every flicker of movement was a potential threat. The rogue was clever, orchestrating attacks with patience and precision, using fear as both weapon and shield. "Talen," she murmured, voice low and steady, "we need to anticipate their next move." "They are not just striking at random," Talen nodded, scanning the streets below. "They've learned our patterns. Each rescue, each patrol, Teek's watch, they analyze. But we can turn that against them." Aislen's mind raced, connecting threads, tracing the rogue's footprints through Havermouth's chaos. Hybrid sightings, rogue communications, and Van Helsing patrol routes formed a map of predicted actions. The enemy's strategy was audacious: create fear, isolate the pack and force them into defensive corners. But the pack had survived, adapted, and learned. Now, it was time to move with intention, striking before Havermouth could be further destabilized. The rogue appeared suddenly on the horizon, a shadow flitting between buildings, signaling hybrids to converge at multiple points. The pack reacted instinctively, splitting into squads, each wolf moving with fluid precision. Aislen led the main group, advancing through alleyways, their steps silent, hearts synchronized with urgency and anticipation. The first hybrid struck from the shadows, a blur of teeth and claws. But the pack met it with coordinated force, neutralizing the threat swiftly. Aislen's wolf instincts flared, guiding her strikes, sensing openings and predicting the creature's movements before it acted. Talen intercepted another hybrid attempting to flank their squad, meeting force with force, protective and lethal in equal measure. Amid the chaos, Aislen locked on the rogue orchestrating the attack from a rooftop. Their movements were precise and deliberate, controlling the hybrids like a conductor guiding an orchestra of death. But the rogue underestimated the pack's adaptability. "Split formation," Aislen commanded, voice cutting through the din. "Draw them out. Isolate the leader." The squad fanned out, each wolf taking a calculated path, converging toward the rogue's position. The hybrids followed instinctively, leaving the rogue exposed for the first time. With a sudden leap, Aislen scaled a nearby wall, landing silently behind the rogue. The rogue spun, surprise flashing across their face, but the expression vanished instantly, replaced by calculated defiance. "You think this ends tonight?" they hissed. Aislen's gaze was unwavering. "No," she said, voice calm but resolute. "Tonight, it begins." In a blur of motion, the confrontation escalated. Claws clashed, shadows twisted, and the rogue's hybrid allies lunged to protect their master. The rooftop became a battlefield, a dance of survival and strategy. Every strike, every dodge, was measured, every movement carried the weight of life or death. Below, Talen's squad intercepted additional hybrids, forming a protective barrier to prevent reinforcements from reaching the rooftop. Communication was silent. A shared understanding, instincts honed through training and trust. The rogue's attacks were relentless, but Aislen was faster, sharper, and guided by a wolf's intuition. With a decisive maneuver, she disarmed the rogue, sending them tumbling toward the ledge. The hybrid followers froze, hesitation breaking the rhythm of their assault. Aislen seized the moment, neutralizing them with precise strikes. The rogue lay at her feet, breathing heavily, eyes calculating yet cornered. "You may have won this round," they said, voice edged with threat. "But the game has only begun. Havermouth will burn again. And next time, you want to be ready." Aislen stood tall, chest heaving, wolf instincts thrumming beneath her skin. "We'll be ready," she replied, voice carrying unwavering resolve. "And when the city rises, we be the shadow they cannot touch thee," as the rogue was taken into temporary containment. The pack regrouped, surveying the city from their vantage point. Havermouth bore scars, yet the pack had turned chaos into opportunity, fear into strategy. They had learned the rogue's methods, anticipated moves, and now held the advantage, but the war was far from over. Aislen's eyes swept the horizon. Somewhere, In the labyrinth of smoke, fire, and ruined streets, other threats lurked, waiting for the pack to falter. But she would not falter. Not tonight. Not ever. Havermouth had its defenders, shadows in motion, hearts united, ready to strike before the next wave of darkness descended. Chapter 10. Siege of Shadows. The night air was thick with smoke and tension. Havermouth had survived the rogue's initial gambit, but the city's heartbeat was uneven, every shadow a potential threat. Aislen moved through the streets with silent determination, wolf instincts alert to the faintest tremor in the rubble. The slightest whisper of movement. Talen walked beside her, his presence a steady anchor amid the chaos. "They're organizing again," he murmured, eyes scanning the ruined streets. "I can feel it. Rogues are gathering." "Tonight, they strike with everything they've got," Aislen nodded, her senses sharp. "We've learned from their last attack. This time, we won't just react." We, the city groaned as distant explosions echoed through its skeletal structures. Flames flickered across the horizon, painting the night in harsh orange and black. Civilians huddled in makeshift shelters. Trembling, fearful. The pack moved like shadows, protective and lethal, guiding the survivors while scouting for rogue movements. From a high vantage point, Aislen could see the rogue leader coordinating attacks. Hybrid forces flanking from multiple directions, each maneuver calculated to stretch the pack thin. But Aislen had learned their rhythm, their patterns, their overconfidence. Tonight, she would turn the siege into a trap. "Positions," she commanded, voice low but firm. "We split into 3 squads. 1 distracts, 1 intercepts, and 1 flanks." Timing is everything. The wolves dispersed, moving with practiced precision. Talen and his squad took the southern flank, creating decoys and drawing hybrids into predictable paths. Aislen led the central force, ready to strike at the rogue escort, while the eastern squad maneuvered to cut off escape routes and reinforce weak points. The first wave of hybrids charged. A blur of teeth and claws. The pack met them head, on cache-controlled and synchronized, neutralizing threats with calculated strikes. Civilians were ushered to safety, unseen corridors providing temporary refuge from chaos. Aislen locked on the rogue leader again, orchestrating from behind cover. The leader's presence was magnetic, commanding, and dangerous, every move a challenge, every glance a taunt. Aislen's wolf stirred, muscles coiling. Instincts screaming for confrontation. Suddenly, a group of rogues breached a barricade, moving toward the central square. Aislen and Talen converged, cutting them off in a precious pincer movement. The battle escalated. A symphony of controlled chaos, wolves and rogues clashing under flickering fires, the city's skeleton echoing every impact. Amid the battle, Aislen spotted a civilian trapped beneath debris. Without hesitation, she shifted fully, wolf instincts taking over. Muscles rippled as she leaped over obstacles, claws tearing through twisted metal, teeth breaking chains. She freed the civilian, guiding them to safety, before turning back to the fight. The rogue leader appeared closer now, hybrid allies thinning, cornered but still defiant. Their eyes met Aislen's. A silent recognition passing between predator and hunter. The city seemed to hold its breath. Shadows stretching long and taut across the battle. Scarred streets. "You think this ends with fire?" the rogue leader hissed. Stepping forward, claws glinting under the moonlight. "Havermouth is mine to break. And soon. It will crumble entirely." Aislen's gaze was unyielding. "You underestimate the pack," she said, voice carrying through the chaos. "We rise from the ashes stronger than you can imagine," with a roar. The final clash erupted. Wolves moved in synchronized precision, hybrids lunged and faltered. And Aislen faced the rogue leader directly. Every strike, every maneuver, carried the weight of survival, loyalty, and vengeance. The fight was a brutal ballet, shadows and fire entwined, hearts pounding in unison with the rhythm of battle. Hours passed, the night stretching and bending under the strain of combat. Slowly, the rogue forces faltered, hybrids neutralized or retreating. The leader driven to a defensive position atop a collapsed building. The city, though scarred, stood resilient. Aislen approached the rogue leader, eyes cold yet steady. "This is your last chance," she said. Havermouth will not fall. Not tonight, not ever. Surrender, or face what comes next, the rogue leader snarled, fury flashing. Before disappearing into the shadows, a retreat, not surrender, leaving the city and pack to tend wounds, rebuild defenses, and prepare for the inevitable continuation of this war. Aislen looked over her pack-res, exhausted but unwavering. Tonight. We proved we can survive anything, she said. But the battle is far from over. We need to be ready for whatever comes next. The fires of Havermouth glowed against the night sky, a reminder of both devastation and resilience. Shadows moved, hidden eyes watched, and the city waited, breathing and alive, as the pack prepared for the challenges yet to come. Chapter 11. Secrets in the Ashes. The first light of dawn crept over Havermouth, casting pale gold across streets still scarred with smoke and debris. The city breathed a weary sigh, caught between relief and anticipation. Aislen walked among the ruins, senses alert to every whisper of movement, every flicker of shadow. Though the siege had been repelled, she knew the danger was far from over. The rogues had retreated, but their intentions remained unbroken, invisible threads weaving a far larger plan. Talen joined her at the edge of a collapsed building, arms crossed, his jaw tight. They knew our patterns, he said. Voice low. Every move we made, they were ready for. Someone is feeding them intelligence, Aislen's narrowed. Scanning the streets, among the rubble, subtle signs hinted at the rogues' hidden networks, symbols etched in walls, footprints that didn't belong to the initial attackers, and faint residue of hybrid energy she could sense but not yet trace fully. It is more than just brute force, she murmured. This is anti-random chaos, it has a map, and they're guiding us along it, inside the pack headquarters. The council gathered, bat faces tense. Maps, cap charts, and hastily scrawled notes were spread across the table. Whispers of betrayal and suspicion coursed through the room like static electricity, making the air heavy. Aislen spoke first. The rogues aren't working alone. Someone inside Havermouth, someone with knowledge of the pack's strategies, is coordinating with them. Murmurs filled the room, eyes darted around, each wolf questioning loyalty, wondering who among them might be compromised. Talen's hand clenched the table. We need proof before we act. Panic will only give them leverage. Aislen's gaze fell on the rooftop across the street. Shadows moved there, shifting in the early morning light. She felt a flicker of recognition, a memory of a mark she had seen before. A subtle signal only visible to those who knew to look. They've left breadcrumbs, she said. A trail. Someone wants us to follow it, or maybe they want us to fall into a trap. The pack split into reconnaissance teams, moving silently through the ruined streets. Each step was careful, calculated, as though the city itself were holding its breath. The rogues' strategy was clever: distraction, misdirection, and psychological warfare, but the pack had survived such games before. Aislen felt her wolf stir beneath her skin, instincts whispering warnings and opportunities in equal measure. Hours passed as they traced the subtle clues, leading them deeper into Havermouth's abandoned districts. There, hidden beneath the remnants of a collapsed school, they discovered a hidden enclave, underground chamber filled with maps, journals, and strange artifacts pulsating with rogue energy. Aislen's pulse quickened. This was the center of the rogues' intelligence network, and among the scattered papers, she found the unmistakable signature of someone she had trusted, pack member she had counted as an ally. Betrayal wrapped around her chest, heavy and suffocating, but she did not falter. We have confirmation, she said, voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath. The rogue attacks are guided from within. And the traitor is someone close. Talen's eyes darkened. Then we confront them carefully. One wrong move, and Havermouth falls. As night descended again, the city became a maze of shadows, secrets, and hidden threats. The pack set traps, prepared ambushes, and positioned themselves for the inevitable confrontation. Every sense was heightened, every step deliberate. In the quiet moments, Aislen reflected on the fragile threads holding Havermouth together. The rogues' assault had been only the beginning, prelude to something far more sinister. And at the center of it all was a truth that would shake the very foundation of the pack. The first whispers of betrayal had been uncovered. But the full story, the true extent of the conspiracy, was still hidden in the ashes. Ailena's gaze hardened. "We find them," she vowed. "And we end this before Havermouth burns beyond repair," the city's pulse continued. A rhythm of fear and resilience intertwined. Somewhere in the shadows, the rogue watched, knowing their plan was only partially revealed. And somewhere within the pack, a traitor waited, unaware that the noose of revelation was tightening. Chapter 12. Web of Deceit. The chamber beneath the ruined school smelled of damp earth sink and decay, a place abandoned long before the chaos that had descended on Havermouth. Aislen crouched over the scattered maps, tracing routes of rogue movements with a finger, as if she could feel their intent embedded in the paper. Each line, each symbol, each marking whispered of planning, strategy, and a meticulous mind guiding carnage. Talen stepped beside her, voice low, almost a growl. "It is more than just attacks. They are predicting our moves." Manipulating the pack like pawns, his eyes swept the room, sharp and calculating. "And the traitor, they've been feeding them everything, every patrol route, every emergency protocol. Even the weakest points in our defenses." Ailena's wolf stirred, a deep, coiling tension beneath her ribs. Betrayal cut sharper than any claw. The thought of someone they trusted, someone they deconsidered family, aiding the rogues, ignited a fire in her chest. "We can't let emotions cloud judgment," she said firmly, though every nerve screamed otherwise. "We track, we observe, we set the trap. Then we expose them." The pack moved carefully, splitting into pairs, weaving through the abandoned districts that had become a labyrinth of shadows and fractured memories. Every echo of movement, every flicker of light, was a potential signal. Aislen felt the weight of unseen eyes on them. The pull of danger thick in the air. In the center of the enclave, they discovered journals filled with coded entries, names, dates, and cryptic diagrams. One page caught Ailena's attention, a symbol repeated across entries, identical to a marking she had seen on a pack member's personal quarters. Recognition hit like a lightning strike. The traitor was closer than she had imagined, someone embedded within their daily lives, moving among them with a mask of loyalty. Talena's voice broke her focus. "We follow this thread. It will lead us to the source. And we confront them where they least expect it." Hours passed as the pack deciphered the codes, piecing together the network of deceit. Each revelation pulled the web tighter around the traitor, forcing them into a corner where mistakes would be fatal. The city outside lay quiet, but every shadow, every rustle, was a reminder that danger was never far, and that the rogues were patient predators. Ailena's mind raced. The rogue leader's previous retreat had been deliberate, a lure designed to scatter the pack, leaving vulnerabilities for exploitation. The internal betrayal, combined with external assaults, was a strategy of attrition, psychological, physical, and moral. The pack's resilience had been tested. But the true trial was just beginning. As night fell, Aislen stationed squads at vantage points, blending intelligence and instinct, observation and patience. Talen took one side of the city, signaling silently through hand gestures. Aislen moved to the central intersection, senses sharpened, every nerve attuned to the faintest anomaly. From the shadows, a figure emerged, calculated, deliberate, familiar. Ailen's pulse tightened as recognition bloomed, anger and resolve intertwining. The traitor's mask was flawless, but beneath it, hesitation betrayed them. "You've been busy," Aislen said, voice cutting through the night. "Too busy to hide from what is coming." The figure froze, then smirked, defiance masking fear. "You think you've won?" "The rogues are only the beginning. Havermouth's ashes will write the end, with or without me." Ailen's wolf surged, muscles coiling, senses sharpening. "Not while we draw breath," she replied. "Tonight, the web unravels, and every strand of deceit ends with exposure, in the silent tension before the inevitable confrontation." The pack's strategy became clear. Every squad moved into position, ready to corner the traitor, but prepared for the rogue leader's next move. Shadows lengthened, the city held its breath, and the hidden war intensified. Threading betrayal and loyalty into a pulse-pounding web, Aislen's gaze met Talen's across the street. Unspoken agreement passing between them. They would fight, survive, and uncover the truth, no matter how deep or dark the deception ran. The night was far from over. Havermouth waited, silent yet alive. As the first true confrontation with the traitor drew near, a clash that would determine not only the city's fate but the trust and unity of the pack itself. Chapter 13. Confronting the Betrayer. The moon hung low over Havermouth, casting long silver fingers through the gaps in crumbling rooftops. Silence pressed in from every direction, broken only by the faint rustle of debris stirred by wind. Aislen crouched behind a fractured wall, eyes scanning the dim streets. Her pulse was steady, but beneath it her wolf prowled, coiled and alert. Tonight, patience would be as important as strength. Across the intersection, the traitor emerged from the shadows, moving with deliberate care, unaware of how closely every step was being monitored. Familiar features masked under a hood. But Aislen's gaze penetrated every layer. Every motion carried the confidence of someone used to hiding in plain sight. Someone certain they could manipulate the Packy's trust. "You thought you could outmaneuver us?" Aislen's voice carried over the stillness, sharp and cold. The traitor froze, then slowly turned, eyes narrowing as recognition sparked behind the mask. "I did what I had to do," the figure said. Voice steady but layered with tension. "The pack doesn't understand the bigger picture. Havermouth needs a new order." Aislen's fingers brushed against the hilt of her dagger, muscles coiling. "You call this order?" she said, gesturing to the ruins, the scars of rogue attacks, the lives at risk. "You've even endangered everyone, betrayed every wolf who trusted you," the traitor laughed softly. A sound that didn't reach their eyes. Trust is a luxury in times like these. Havermouth's survival isn't about loyalties, it's about power. "You'll see soon enough." Talen emerged from the shadows behind her, silent as a phantom, eyes fixed on the traitor. He shifted subtly, signaling the hidden squads to close in, surrounding the figure. Escape routes vanished, leaving only confrontation. Aislen stepped forward, every sense heightened. The air hummed with tension, a tangible energy that made the hairs along her neck stand on end. "It ends tonight," she said, voice unwavering. Tell me why you did this," the traitor's smirk faltered. A flicker of doubt crossing features usually composed. "Because the pack is weak," they admitted. Voice dropping to a near whisper. Because all of you cling to tradition while the world burns around you." "I chose to survive, to control what survival looked like." Aislen's wolf reacted instantly, muscles tensing beneath her skin. Every instinct screamed that the danger wasn't just physical. Traitor's mind was a weapon. Their cunning more dangerous than any claws. "Survival," she said slowly, eyes narrowing, "isn't worth destroying everything you claim to protect. You risked lives for ego and ambition." A sudden movement, flicker in the shadows, made the squads tighten their formation. The traitor had expected only Aislen and Talen, not the pack's hidden contingent surrounding the perimeter. Panic flickered in their eyes, quickly masked by bravado. "You think you've trapped me?" they challenged. "I've been planning this for months. You're walking into my design." Aislen's breath deepened. Wolf instincts sharpening each thought. "Number, we're stepping out of your design and reclaiming our city. Havermouth isn't yours to destroy." "Not tonight," Talen signaled with a hand, and the squads moved simultaneously, closing distances silently but swiftly. The traitor realized their situation, calculating escape, but hesitation betrayed them. Aislen advanced, voice steady, wolf coiled behind every word. "You have one chance. Confess everything, or we bring you down and the rogues take what is left of your pride," the figure faltered, eyes darting between Aislen and the encircling squads. The fight was inevitable, but so was the exposure. "Fine," they spat finally, voice bitter. "You want the truth? I fed them everything. Patrols, weaknesses, strategies, every detail I thought would make Havermouth stronger in the end. But yes, it was chaos. And yes, I watched as it burned." Aislen's wolf surged, a low, restrained growl resonating from deep within. "You will answer for every life you endangered," she said, slowly circling, keeping eyes locked on theirs. "And you will help us stop the rogues before any more blood is spilled." The traitorous shoulders sagged. Realization and fear merging into a tense resignation. The trap was set, their options gone. Havermouth is fate. The pack is trust, and the rogue threat converged in this narrow street. One wrong move, and the city would bleed again. Aislen stepped closer, closing the distance deliberately, letting the weight of her presence settle over the traitor. "Start talking. Every secret. Every ally. Every plan. If you cooperate, there might be a chance for redemption. If not, UTL find out how far Havermouth will go to protect itself. For a heartbeat," the traitor wavered. Then began speaking. Name strategies, hidden locations, drop the breadcrumbs needed to dismantle the rogue network. The city outside remained tense, aware in some instinctual way that the turning point had arrived. Tonight, Havermouth would reclaim its streets. Tonight, betrayal would meet accountability. And amidst the shadows, Aislen and Talen stood vigilant, ready to face whatever came next. Chapter 14. The Rogue's Last Gambit. The wind had shifted, carrying the metallic tang of blood and ash across Havermouth. Every street seemed to thrum with anticipation, as though the city itself sensed the approaching storm. Aislen's squad moved silently, every step measured, every sense alert. The traitor's revelations had left them a path, but it was only a path through fire. Across the ruined town square, shadows flickered like smoke. The rogue leader emerged, tall and imposing, their coat trailing like a dark banner. Eyes glimmered with malevolent calculation, surveying the pack's deployment with unsettling calm. "So the rogue drawled, voice cutting through the night air, "the pack thinks it knows the game." "But do you really?" Talen stepped forward beside Aislen, muscles coiled, wolf pulsing beneath skin. "We know enough," he said, voice low but carrying through the square. "Your advantage is gone." "It ends tonight," the rogue laughed, a dry, brittle sound that carried no warmth. "Tonight?" they said, raising their hands slightly. From the shadows, figures emerged, rogue vampires, hybrids, and wolves previously hidden. The city streets became a theater of looming threats. Tonight is only the beginning, Aislen's gaze sharpened. Every instinct screamed caution. Every sound and movement became amplified, footsteps, the distant crash of debris, the hiss of shifting wolves. The pack had to strike precisely, or Havermouth would become their tomb. She signaled Talen with a subtle flick of her wrist. The squad split, moving into pre-designated positions, flanking the rogue forces silently. The traitorous intelligence proved invaluable, each ambush point, each weakness, already mapped out in their minds. Suddenly, the rogue leader lunged, a blur across the square. Wolves from both sides shifted in response, claws scraping stone and gravel. Aislen dove forward, dagger drawn, meeting the first wave of attackers with swift precision. Every strike was calculated, a mix of instinct and trained skill. The pack's survival depending on rhythm and coordination. From the rooftops, Talen launched arrows tipped with silver, each finding its mark with deadly efficiency. Shadows moved with lethal grace as the pack cut through the rogue vanguard. But the leader was nowhere to be found, always one step ahead, orchestrating chaos from the darkness. Arya, who had joined the front lines, felt the pull of her wolf surge, every nerve ignited, senses magnified. She could feel the rogue leader's intent, their calculated movements, their hesitation. The bond between pack and wolf became a conduit, connecting her to Aislen and Talen as one coordinated unit. Then came the sudden explosion. Cracks in the street erupted as hidden traps detonated, sending dust and shrapnel into the night air. Screams cut through the roar of combat. Wolves shifted, dodged, and retaliated. Chaos rippling like shockwaves. Aislen's eyes locked on the rogue leader as they attempted to flee toward the northern bridge, a position that would allow them to escape and regroup. Heart hammering, she signaled the intercept team. "Stop them. Don't let them reach the river," the rogue leader snarled. Sensing the narrowing options, their movements became reckless, desperate, but Ailen's squad was relentless. The distance closed. The square became a gauntlet, every step laden with the potential for sudden death. Finally, they cornered the rogue leader against the edge of the bridge, the river churning darkly below. The air was electric, tension coiling like a living thing. "It ends here," Aislen said, voice carrying authority and resolve. The rogue leader sneered, but the weight of inevitability settled in their shoulders. Behind them, the pack encircled. Wolves growling low, the city holding its breath. The last gambit had failed. And yet, even in defeat? The rogue's eyes flickered with a dark promise. There was more to come, more hidden pieces, more shadows waiting to strike. But for tonight, Havermouth survived. Aislen exhaled slowly, wolf still tense beneath her skin. Talen moved beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We've won this round," he murmured. "But they won't give up so easily." Arya stood at the edge of the square, her breath ragged, heart pounding. Yet a new fire burned inside her. The bond, the pact, the city Tiknes were all intertwined. And she knew that survival wasn't just about fighting the rogues. Twit was about confronting every shadow within and without. The night sky glimmered above, streaked with clouds, reflecting the scars of battle below. The pack had emerged victorious for now, but the war for Havermouth was far from over. Chapter 15. Secrets in the Shadows. Havermouth's streets were quiet now, but the silence was heavy, oppressive. Smoke curled from the ruined buildings, the acrid scent of fire mingling with the wet earth and the metallic tang of spilled blood. The pack moved cautiously. Senses stretched taut. Every shadow could conceal another danger, every whisper could carry betrayal. Arya walked beside Aislen and Talen, her wolf still simmering beneath her skin. Pulse pounding with the echo of the night's battle. Even with the rogue leader captured, unease gnawed at her. The city had survived, but at what cost? And more importantly, what secrets had been unearthed along the way? Inside the abandoned schoolhouse that served as the temporary command center, the pack gathered. The rogue leader sat restrained, eyes flickering with defiance and calculation, yet there was an unmistakable weariness behind their facade. Aislen stepped forward, gaze unwavering. "Talk," she commanded. "We know you've been orchestrating more than just attacks. Tell us what is coming next, or the pack won't show mercy." The rogue's lips curled into a smile, one that didn't reach their eyes. "You think the streets, the rubble, the fire, that is all I had planned? Havermouth is only the beginning. The world doesn't even know how thin the veil is between what you see and what lurks in the dark. My work, it is just starting." A hush fell over the room. Talen's jaw tightened, wolf bristling under his skin. "What do you mean? You've been coordinating these attacks with whom? What is the end game?" The rogue's gaze flicked toward Arya, sharp and unsettling. "Your precious pack, your precious leaders, they've kept secrets, secrets that, if revealed, could tear you apart from within. They've only been the catalyst." Arya felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Her mind raced. Every whisper she had ignored, every odd disappearance, every unexplained movement in the Pacticu were pieces of a larger puzzle. And now, the rogue claimed to hold the key. Elena's hand gripped the rogue's collar. "If you value your life, you'll start talking. Who is helping you? Who is inside our ranks?" The rogue laughed softly, almost mockingly. "Inside. That is the tragedy. You'd never suspect them. The betrayal isn't in the streets. It is in your hearts. And the moment you realize it, it'll be too late," Arya's wolf growled, a low, warning sound vibrating through her chest. Something in those words struck deep, resonating with a fear she couldn't fully articulate. She glanced at Aislen and Talen. Both were on edge, reading the rogue's every movement, trying to anticipate what came next. "Ina Friddles," Talen snapped. "We control this city. We control this pack. If you don't tell us now, we will uncover everything the hard way." The rogue's smirk faltered, and for a fleeting moment, vulnerability flickered across their features. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Hard ways are more enlightening," they said. "Util's ether, shadows are everywhere. Even among those you trust the most." Aislen's gaze swept the room, Everyone felt it, chill. The looming weight of an invisible threat. Trust had always been fragile, but now it seemed like every bond was under scrutiny. Arya's mind reeled. The rogue wasn't just a physical threat. Ember were a psychological one. Every attack, every move. Every whispered threat carried layers she had barely begun to understand. And the pack's safety depended not only on strength but on insight, on seeing through deception before it struck. As the night deepened, the rogue was taken to a secure holding area. But Arya couldn't shake the sense that the danger had only shifted, not ended. Somewhere in Havermouth, hidden truths waited. And shadows moved with intent. Later, Arya stepped onto the roof of the schoolhouse. The city sprawled beneath her. Scarred but alive. The moonlight reflected off the broken windows and twisted metal. Her wolf stirred, restless and alert. Every instinct screamed that this was only the beginning. That the rogue's revelations were just the first layer of a deeper conspiracy. She exhaled, breath fogging in the cold night air. "We have to be ready," she whispered to herself. "Every shadow, every secret, we have to see it coming, and somewhere in the darkness, beyond the walls of the pack." A figure watched, unseen. A quiet, deliberate presence, calculating the next move. Havermouth was far from safe. And the true war was only just beginning. Chapter 16. The Web Within. The morning air in Havermouth was thick with fog and the lingering smell of smoke. Streets that had once seemed familiar were now scarred and alien, shadows clinging to the corners like sentient things. Arya walked beside Aislen and Talen, each step measured, her senses stretched taut. The rogue's warnings from the night before weighed heavily on her mind. Inside the pack's command center, the atmosphere was tense. Wolves moved with quiet urgency, preparing for contingencies, yet every glance, every gesture hinted at uncertainty. Arya could feel it, a subtle shift in the energy of the pack. Distrust had taken root. And even among allies, hesitation lingered like a shadow. Aislen broke the silence, voice low but firm. "The rogue's information is incomplete, but it is enough to know the threat isn't gone. We have enemies within. Someone is feeding them intelligence." Talen's jaw tightened. "Inside the pack? How do we even begin to figure out who?" Arya's wolf stirred beneath her skin, instincts flaring. Every heartbeat, every breath, carried signals she could barely interpret. Her mind sifted through recent events, missing supplies, unexplained patrol failures, subtle changes in the ranks. There was a pattern, hidden but discernible. The rogue hadn't acted alone. "We start by observing," Arya said, voice steady, though her pulse raced. "Watch movements. Watch reactions. Shadows can be revealing if you know how to read them." Aislen nodded. "Agreed." "We split into observation teams. Subtlety is key. No accusations until we have proof." The day passed in quiet vigilance. Arya moved through the pack of eyes and ears attuned, noting minor inconsistencies, glance held too long. A hesitation in command, a whispered conversation abruptly cut short. Each anomaly added to the invisible web she was beginning to map in her mind. By late afternoon, Arya found herself alone in the training yard, sunlight slanting through the skeletal remains of the schoolhouse windows. Her wolf hummed beneath her skin, restless, pushing her to focus, to sharpen her awareness. It was here, in the quiet tension between action and observation, that she sensed it, presence that did not belong, subtle yet undeniable. A figure stepped from the shadows, casual in demeanor but deliberate in motion. Arya's pulse spiked. "Who's there?" she called, voice steady but laced with warning. The figure froze, then turned slowly. It was one of the newer pack members, someone she had barely interacted with, yet the weight of deception radiated from them. "Arya," the wolf said, almost too softly, "you're reading too much into things," her wolf growled low. A sound that vibrated through her chest. Something was off. Everything about this person radiated quiet calculation, a practiced mask hiding intent. Arya stepped closer, studying every subtle gesture. "I've learned to trust instincts," she said, "and mine aren't wrong." The figure's lips tightened, a flicker of irritation crossing their features before a calm mask returned. "Careful," they said, voice deceptively even. Paranoia can be dangerous. Don't let it control you. Arya didn't move. The tension stretched, silent and taut. Until the figure finally retreated into the shadows, leaving only the faintest hint of assent, a trace that would linger in her awareness for hours. Her wolf quivered, alert and insistent. There were more layers to this threat than anyone had realized. The rogue was only the beginning. Later, in the strategy room, Arya shared her observations with Aislen and Talen. Maps, patrol schedules, and incident reports were spread across the table. Arya pointed to anomalies, subtle inconsistencies that could indicate internal betrayal. We can't act yet, she said. But we can set traps, observe, and gather proof. The shadows inside our pack will reveal themselves if we are patient. Aislen's eyes were sharp. Calculating. Then we do exactly that. Quiet vigilance. And we prepare for the next attack. The rogue's plan isn't finished. And now we know the danger is closer than we thought, Talen nodded, placing a firm hand on Arya's shoulder. You've got a gift, he said. Senses like yours, they are what'll keep this pack alive, Arya exhaled. Wolf simmering beneath her skin, heart still hammering. Every step forward was fraught with unseen dangers. Yet she felt a spark of control over perception, over strategies, over survival. The web of secrets was vast, but with patience, with vigilance, she wouldn't tangle it. Outside, the sun dipped lower, shadows stretching across Havermouth like fingers. Somewhere beyond the city limits, hidden eyes watched, assessing, plotting. The next move in this deadly game was already in motion. Arya, aware and resolute, was ready to meet it. Chapter 17. Confronting the traitor night had fallen over Havermouth, casting a cold silver light across streets, still scorched from previous skirmishes. The town was quiet, but every shadow seemed alive, watching, waiting. Arya moved cautiously with Aislen and Talen, a laddie, the three of them slipping through alleyways like ghosts, senses alert for even the faintest anomaly. The intelligence Arya had gathered during the day had painted a clear but dangerous picture. The rogue's attacks were no longer random, they were guided, orchestrated by someone who had intimate knowledge of the pack's movements, and that someone had been hiding in plain sight. This is it, Aislen whispered, voice tight. If we're wrong, it is just embarrassment. If we're right, we could save lives, lose them. Arya's wolf pulsed beneath her skin, nerves strung tight. Every instinct screamed the truth, but she knew she had to approach carefully. Too much aggression could alert the traitor, forcing them to vanish into the night before evidence could be secured. They reached the abandoned warehouse on the edge of town, a place previously used as a supply depot. Its broken windows and charred walls made it a perfect hiding spot. Shadows pooled in the corners like liquid ink. Arya's heartbeat quickened. She could sense movement even before the intruders became visible. From the darkness, a voice broke the silence. I knew someone would come snooping. The figure stepped into the dim light, tall, dashling, and deceptively calm. The wolf scent emanating from them was subtle but deceptive, someone trained to mask true intentions. Arya tensed. This was the person responsible for the leaks, for the precious attacks that had threatened the pack and the town. You've been feeding the rogues, Arya said, voice unwavering despite the cold creeping into her bones. Why betray your own pack? The traitor's lips curved into a tight, humorless smile. Betrayal is a matter of perspective, they said smoothly. Survival isn't always loyalty. Sometimes the pack makes choices that are inconvenient for me. Talen stepped forward, hands clenched. Inconvenient? You've esteemed everyone. Families, elders, children, TQ risk them all. Aislen's gaze was sharp, unyielding. We're not asking step forward, or we take action. The traitor paused, weighing their options. And in that brief hesitation, Arya's wolf flared. She felt every pulse, every micro-expression, every heartbeat that betrayed the figure's resolve. Arya moved swiftly, shadowing their motion, cutting off potential escape routes. You don't get to run from this, Arya said firmly. We've seen the patterns. We know the truth. You're cornered. The figure's eyes flickered with something akin to fear. Was it calculation? And what you do, little wolf? They taunted. Kill me. Arrest me? Do you even understand the consequences of exposing me? Yaria Espulse didn't falter. I understand more than you think. The pack deserves to survive. You chose the wrong side. Suddenly, the figure lunged, trying to break through an escape path. Arya reacted instinctively, her body moving with precision honed over months of training and survival. She caught the person's wrist, twisting just enough to force them to their knees. A low growl emanated from her chest, resonating with the wolf within. You underestimated me, she said, voice steady, every word a warning. And that mistake ends now. The traitor struggled but was restrained by the combined efforts of Aislen and Talen. Breath ragged, eyes wide with realization, they finally sank to the floor, defeated but not yet broken. Arya's gaze was cold, unwavering. You'll answer to the pack. Every single secret you tried to hide. Every life you endangered, would self-expose it all. The traitor swallowed hard, knowing escape was impossible. The quiet of the warehouse was punctuated only by the ragged breathing of wolves who had cornered their own kind. Outside, the moon cast a silvery glow across Havermouth, the town waiting, unaware of the silent confrontation that would shift the balance of power within the supernatural world. As they escorted the traitor back to the pack's headquarters, Arya felt a cautious satisfaction. The immediate threat was contained, but the knowledge that there were deeper forces at work lingered like a shadow across her mind. The rogue attacks were far from over, and someone, Elige or something, was still orchestrating chaos from the darkness. Her wolf hummed beneath her skin, a low, set, steady reminder. Vigilance was survival. And Arya had only just begun to unravel the web that threatened everything she cared about. Chapter 18. The siege begins. The first light of dawn barely touched Havermouth when the alarms began. A low, guttural howl echoed across the outskirts of town, rolling like a storm that had been waiting years to strike. Arya's eyes snapped open, senses already alert, her wolf stirring beneath her skin with a keen, restless awareness. Something is happening, she muttered, moving to the window. Smoke curled in the distance, mingling with the morning mist. Fires had erupted along the northern borders, signs of an attack that was no longer scattered but coordinated. Talen appeared beside her, his expression taut. It is worse than we thought. The rogues aren't just raiding, laying siege. Arya's pulse quickened, her mind raced through possibilities. Strategies, contingencies. The traitor's capture had provided some answers. But now the rogues were acting with alarming precision. Every window of Havermouth, every alley, every barricade could be a trap. Ellen arrived, silent as a shadow I sees flicking to Arya. We can't hold them off alone. The pack needs to rally, and we need to anticipate the attackers' moves. The three of them moved quickly, coordinating through whispers and gestures, assembling what remained of the town's defenders. Humans, wolves, hybrids, likely coalition had no choice but to unite. Outside, the first wave of attackers emerged from the tree line. Their shapes were unnervingly uniform, fast cross-silent, moving like shadows with teeth and claws glinting in the dawnlight. Arya's wolf hummed insistently beneath her skin. Sensing the patterns of their approach, every rhythm of movement, every heartbeat she could feel through the thin veil of tension. Hold the barricades, she called, her voice carrying over the commotion. The pack responded instantly. Instinct and training kicking in. Wolves shifted and darted between positions. Humans armed with whatever could serve as weaponry readied themselves, and Arya's leadership became the anchor amid chaos. The rogues struck first at the town's supply depot, a strategic target meant to cripple resources and morale. Flames leapt into the sky, consuming wood and debris in black smoke that stung Arya's eyes. She could hear the roar of wolves clashing, the shouts of humans scrambling for safety, the desperate cries of those caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Arya darted forward, moving through the chaos with the precision of a predator. Her wolf surged, instincts guiding her hands, Ezra and feet. She intercepted a rogue about to strike a packmate, twisting and redirecting their momentum with fluid grace. Every movement was deliberate, a dance of survival and counterattack. Then she saw him, Hunter. His presence was both a bomb and a firestorm in her chest. He moved like a shadow alongside her, every action calculated. Protective, his wolf attuned to the same rhythm as hers. And yet, the bond between them pulsed unpredictably. A silent tension that neither could ignore even amid battle. "Stay close," he shouted, as a group of rogues lunged toward a barricade. His claws flashed, his body shifting in perfect coordination with hers. A storm of strength and fury. Arya felt her wolf respond, instinctively weaving alongside his attacks. A harmony forged in the chaos. But the siege was relentless. Every victory was met with a new threat. Every retreat with another wave. The rogues were organized, their movements deliberate. As if someone, cheer something, was orchestrating the carnage from the shadows, Arya realized with a cold clarity. This was more than rebellion. This was war, and Havermouth's survival depended on the pack's ability to act as one. Amid the clash, a scream pierced the air. Arya spun, eyes wide, and saw a young human girl trapped under falling debris. Without hesitation, she surged forward, ignoring the flanking rogues, lifting the wood with raw strength and snarling as she protected the girl. Her wolf roared, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to shake the air, warning the attackers away. Hunter joined her in an instant, pulling her and the girl back toward the relative safety of the barricades. Their eyes met for a fleeting moment, silent acknowledgement, shared resolve, took the bond between them, unspoken but undeniable. Flared like fire beneath their skin. As the sun began to rise fully, casting harsh light on the war-torn town, Arya realized the harsh truth. Havermouth might survive this siege, but the rogues had made their intentions clear. They were not stopping. And somewhere, orchestrating the chaos, a shadow moved. Waiting for the perfect moment to strike the heart of the page, Garea's wolf hummed insistently, alerting her to subtle vibrations in the earth, the rhythm of the rogue's advance. She clenched her fists, teeth gritted, mind sharp. This was only the beginning, and she would meet it head on. Chapter 19. Shadows among the pack. The morning sun had barely risen over Havermouth, yet the town smelled of smoke, fear, and blood. The siege had slowed, but it had not ended. Debris littered streets, walls bore scorch marks, and everywhere the echoes of chaos lingered like a stain. Arya moved cautiously, her wolf senses stretched taut, scanning every shadow, every flutter of movement. "They're not gone," she muttered, voice low. Talen, moving beside her, nodded grimly. The rogues regrouped, there watching, waiting for mistakes. Arya's gaze flicked toward the pack members, their faces drawn with exhaustion and unease. Something else lingered in the air, undercurrent of mistrust. Whispers that had started during the first skirmish is now spread like wildfire. Some within the pack suspected there was a traitor among them, someone feeding information to the attackers. Her wolf growled low, instinctive and warning, as she felt a subtle shift in the vibrations of the earth. The rhythm of footsteps and heartbeats that didn't belong. The thought struck her cold. Not all threats were outside the barricades. Hunter appeared from the rubble-strewn street, moving like a shadow Tasian scanning. Expression taut. He fell into step beside her, and for a moment, the bond between them hummed in synchrony. A pulse of unspoken agreement. "I've been checking the outer perimeter," he said, voice combat edged with tension. Nothing yet, but something else off inside the pack. Arya nodded, her stomach tightening. She had sensed it to a subtle misalignment in behavior, the hesitation of some members during the siege. Small slips that could easily be dismissed but couldn't be ignored. "We need to find the source before the rogues take advantage," she said. Their investigation took them through the remains of the town's central hall, where the pack gathered for strategy. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of movement set Arya's nerves on edge. Wolves shifted uneasily, eyes darting. Muscles coiled like springs ready to snap. And then she saw it, a figure lingering too long near the communication charts. Hands brushing papers with deliberate carelessness. A shadow that moved just slightly out of sync. As if aware of every button willing to meet any adita Arya's pulse quickened. Her wolves urged beneath her skin, sharpening her senses. "Stay behind me," she whispered to Hunter, stepping forward, posture tense, ready for confrontation. The figure froze, and a split second of recognition passed before their composure returned. Arya. Hunter. The voice was neutral, almost calm. I didn't expect you so soon. You've been feeding them information, Arya said, her tone steady, controlled, yet sharp enough to cut through the tension in the room. The figure's eyes flickered, betraying a flash of guilt. I did what I had to do, they said, voice trembling slightly, though the bravado returned quickly. I only wanted to protect some of you, Arya as Wolf snarled, her instincts clashing with her reason. Protection? That excuse could not erase the danger that had already been unleashed. You endangered all of us, she said. Do you understand the weight of that? Hunter stepped beside her, his presence a silent pillar. If you value your life, Tart speaking the truth. Now, the figure hesitated, swallowing hard. Finally. Words tumbled out. It is part of a larger plan. The rogues are not acting alone. Someone higher up, someone we trusted, has been coordinating attacks from within. I had no choice but to comply. Arya felt the room tilt, her pulse hammering in her ears. Betrayal from within. A shadow that could undo everything they had fought for. Her wolf growled, and she pressed her hand to the figure's chest, feeling the faint quiver of fear, deceit, and guilt. Every second you hesitate, more lives are at risk, she said. Hunter Essie's locked onto hers, a silent agreement passing between them. They would uncover the traitor, protect the pack, and survive the siege, but the cost would be higher than anyone could anticipate. Outside, the rogues were regrouping, unaware that the greater threat might already be inside Havermouth. Arya's wolf pulsed with the warning. And she knew that the next moves, both from the rogues and from the shadow within, would decide not only who lived and died, but whether the pack could ever trust itself again. The bond between her and Hunter flared in unison, a surge of instinct, resolve, and unspoken communication. Together, they would hunt the shadow and meet the rogue's head, and cess, but each step into the coming night would carry uncertainty for Hafir, and the constant hum of danger beneath the skin. And somewhere in the depths of Havermouth, a dark plan waited, ready to strike at the very heart of the pack. Chapter 20. The Shadow Strikes. Night fell over Havermouth like a heavy shroud, swallowing the broken streets in darkness. The fog from earlier had thickened, curling around toppled lampposts and shattered windows, making every shadow seem alive. Arya crouched atop a ruined wall, senses alert, her wolf coiling tight within her, every nerve tuned to the faintest disturbance. Hunter moved silently beside her, his gaze scanning the perimeter with the practiced precision of an alpha. Despite the exhaustion etched into his features, the bond between them thrummed like a living thing, syncing pulse with pulse. Instinct with instinct. It whispered of danger, of movement, of someone watching, waiting. They riz inside, Arya whispered, her voice barely a breath. Hunter's eyes narrowed. I feel it too. Something has shifted. The shadow isn't just rumors, as it is here. From the shattered town hall, muffled footsteps echoed. To deliberate, to be ordinary. Arya crouched lower, feeling the faint thrum of a heartbeat out of rhythm with the others. Her wolf surged forward, hungry for confrontation, protective and impatient. Then it happened. A streak of movement, figure slipping between debris and fog, fast at, precise that, ghost-like. Arya's instincts screamed. She pivoted, her body shifting in a fluid motion as she dove forward, landing silently behind the intruder. Stop. Her voice was low, commanding, carrying both the authority of her wolf and the sharp edge of human command. The intruder froze, a glimmer of panic flashing in their eyes. Before words could be exchanged, another shadow lunged from the side, right faster, more lethal. Arya's wolf flared, instincts taking control. She shifted seamlessly, claws extending, fangs bared, and met the attack head. Aggression collision of bodies was silent but violent. A ballet of precision and primal fury. Hunter sprang into action, intercepting another assailant with strength and speed honed over years of training. Every move was calculated, yet instinctual. The bond between him and Arya allowing them to anticipate each other's actions without a word. The fight spread across the square, shadows clashing with wolves and humans alike. Arya Eswolf roared within her as she pinned one rogue against a broken wall, eyes glowing in the darkness. "Who sent you?" she demanded, voice cutting through the chaos. The rogue spat blood onto the stones. "You're too late. Havermouth will burn." Hunter appeared at her side, pressing a hand to her back in a rare moment of connection, grounding her. "We are not late," he said, voice steady, though tension laced every syllable. "We control what happens next." Another explosion rocked the outskirts of the town, scattering debris and sending everyone stumbling. Arya Eswolf screamed at the danger, forcing her to leap toward Hunter, who caught her midair with effortless strength. Their bodies landed in unison, hearts pounding, breaths synchronized. And the bond pulsed, urgent, alive. "Stay close," Hunter said, eyes blazing, scanning the darkness for the next threat. "We take them one shadow at a time," Arya nodded, wolf-growling, senses screaming warnings with every heartbeat. The realization hit her. The true mastermind had been working from the shadows all along. The rogues were pawns. Someone inside Havermouth had orchestrated the attacks, exploiting fear, chaos, and distrust. She looked at Hunter, feeling the pull of the bond stronger than ever. No words were needed. Triquetra were connected in a way that transcended fear, exhaustion, and uncertainty. Together, they would hunt the shadow. Together, they would survive. And somewhere in the darkness, the mastermind watched, waiting, confident that Havermouth's defenders were still unaware of the full scale of the threat. But Arya Eswolf snarled, eyes glowing in the moonlight, refusing to yield. The shadow would strike. They would meet it head on. And nothing, not fear, not betrayal, not death itself, would break the pack's resolve tonight. Chapter 21. Revelations in the dark. The streets of Havermouth were silent again, but the quiet was brittle, like glass ready to shatter. Smoke curled from smoldering ruins, and the scent of charred wood mixed with the tang of fear. Arya crouched behind a toppled statue in the town square, her wolf coiled, alert, every muscle ready to spring. Hunter moved beside her, eyes scanning the shadows, voice low. "They regrouping. We need to find the source before the next wave." Arya nodded, though a cold knot of unease twisted in her stomach. The attacks were anti-random. They were calculated. Someone inside the pack, actor of the town, was feeding the rogues information, guiding them like puppets. Her wolf growled softly, sensing a presence ahead. Through the haze, a faint silhouette appeared, moving with careful steps, deliberate, aware of every breath and heartbeat around them. Arya's pulse spiked. She recognized the gait, the way the figure's eyes flicked nervously yet defiant. Someone she had trusted. Hunter's hand brushed hers, the bond pulsed between them, sharp, insistent. He didn't need to speak. She knew they thought the same thing. This was the shadow inside the pack. The figure turned sharply, sensing them. "Arya, Hunter." The voice was trembling, laced with fear and guilt. "I didn't want it to come to this." "Then explain," Arya demanded, claws flexing, fangs glinting faintly in the dim light. "Every life in Havermouth depends on it." "Start talking," the figure swallowed, looking anywhere but at them. It is part of a larger plan. Someone higher up has been manipulating the rogues, controlling them from behind the scenes. They knew about our defenses, our routines, everything. I was forced to give them what they wanted." Gershap Hunter stepped forward, shadowed by his wolf, the bond making him appear larger, more imposing. "Or what?" His voice was calm, but the tension in it could snap steel. The figure's hands shook. "Or they would have killed my family. I didn't know how to stop them without putting everyone else at risk." Arya felt a flicker of sympathy, quickly swallowed by the roaring need for clarity. The wolf within her pulsed with frustration, rage, and the drive to protect. "Every second you delay, more lives are in danger. Tell us who is behind this." A silence fell, broken only by the distant creak of damaged buildings settling. Then the words came, hesitant, fearful, but true. "It's someone we trusted with our lives, someone in the council." Hunter's jaw tightened. The bond between him and Arya pulsed in warning. Internal betrayal had been whispered about, suspected. But hearing it confirmed was different. Tigger ignited a fire that ran through his veins. "Show me," he said. Voice low but uncompromising, now the figure nodded, fear and relief mingling in their gaze, and led them down a maze of ruined streets to a hidden chamber beneath the town hall. Flickering torchlight revealed maps, communication lines, and evidence that confirmed what they had feared. The rogues were pawns or manipulated by a strategist within the council, someone with access, authority, and motives hidden beneath a mask of loyalty. Arya as Wolf growled, the sound deep and threatening. "We need to act." Tonight, Antara's eyes met hers, and in that gaze, they communicated what words could not: the bond, the trust, the urgency. They would confront the traitor, stop the mastermind, and protect Havermouth together, Jedi trying. Outside, the fog thickened, curling like fingers around broken streets and shattered windows. The rogues would strike again. But the true enemy waited in the shadows, ready to manipulate, deceive, and destroy. Arya flexed her claws, her wolf stirring, fierce and ready. "Let them come," she whispered. "We're not running. Not tonight." Hunter pressed a hand to her back, grounding her, his voice low in almost a murmur. "Together, Arya." Always together, and for the first time since the attacks began, the darkness seemed a little less suffocating. They had the knowledge now. They had each other. And together, they would confront the shadow, fear whatever truths it held. Chapter 20, Chapter 2. The Traitorous Reckoning. The hidden chamber beneath the town hall smelled of damp stone and dust. A forgotten place that now held the weight of betrayal. Arya's eyes scanned the maps and scattered notes, her wolf coiling tight, ready to strike, every fiber of her being pulsed with tension, the bond with Hunter thrumming in perfect synchrony. Hunter stepped forward, eyes narrowing as he examined the evidence. Each document, each communication log, painted a picture of calculated manipulation. Someone inside the council had orchestrated Havermouth as chaos. Rogue attacks, strategic misinformation, and the exploitation of fear, like pieces of a puzzle designed to weaken the pack from within. "We can't waste time," Hunter said, his voice low but unwavering. "If they realize we know, they'll strike tonight." "We need to move now," Arya as Wolf growled, echoing the urgency in her chest. "Then let us confront them before more innocents get hurt," she replied, her voice steady despite the rapid beat of her heart. They ascended the spiral staircase leading to the council chamber. Outside, the fog was thicker, swirling through the shattered streets like a living entity, concealing movement yet hinting at hidden threats. Every step brought them closer to the traitor, closer to the confrontation that would determine the fate of Havermouth. The council chambered or loomed ahead, slightly ajar. A flickering candlelight spilled into the hall, revealing a solitary figure hunched over a set of maps. The sound of deliberate breathing was the only noise. Arya and Hunter exchanged a brief glance, then stepped forward as one. Shadows moving like predators stalking prey. "Enough," Hunter said, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "We know everything." The figure stiffened, slowly rising. You don't understand," the traitor began. But fear laced the words. "Everything I did was for protection, for Havermouth." Arya's wolf bared its teeth, a low growl vibrating in her chest. "Protection? Innocent lives are in flames. And this is your idea of safeguarding them?" Her gaze was sharp, unwavering. "Tell me it wasn't a manipulation. Tell me the lives lost, the chaos, none of that was your design," the traitor faltered. I had no choice. They threatened me, my family. I had to follow their orders." Hunter stepped closer, imposing, his eyes dark with controlled anger. "And what about the rest of us? What about the pack? Did their lives not matter?" Silence hung thickly, only broken by the occasional drip of water from the chamber's stone ceiling. The traitor's shoulders sagged, guilt etched into every line of their face. "Take responsibility," Hunter demanded. "Guide us to the mastermind, or I swear you will regret every second you hesitated." The figure's hands shook, then slowly nodded. "I will. I can show you where they operate. But you must understand. They are dangerous, smarter than anyone could anticipate. If we move carelessly, Everyone dies, Arya's wolf surged. A wave of protective instinct and adrenaline. We move carefully. But we move now. Every second counts, the bond pulsed. Urgent, insistent, weaving between them like a tether of fire and steel. Together, they would face the mastermind, navigate the labyrinth of betrayal, and protect Havermouth from descending into ruin. Outside, the fog shifted. Shadows lengthened, and the air felt charged with a quiet menace. The night had grown deeper, and with it, the stakes. The traitor would lead them, but the real test lay ahead, confronting the puppet master, facing the rogues unleashed, and surviving the darkness that had crept into the heart of the town. Hunter's hand brushed against Arya's as they prepared to leave the chamber. The contact was brief, grounding, yet powerful. A silent promise, whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Arya's wolf growled loud, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Tonight, the reckoning would begin. Chapter 20, Branch 3. Assault on the Mastermind. The night was heavy with expectation. The fog curling like ghostly fingers around Havermouth's shattered streets. Arya crouched behind a crumbling wall to blade. Her wolf coiled, muscles taut, eyes scanning every shadow for the slightest movement. Beside her, Hunter's presence was steady, a grounding force that pulsed through the bond between them. Together, they were more than human. Jerwolf, Jiquun were a single force, synchronized and lethal. The traitor led them through narrow alleys and hidden passages beneath the town, whispering directions, every footstep echoing in the hollow stillness. The closer they drew to the mastermind's lair, the thicker the tension became. Like the air itself held its breath. Arya's senses were heightened, each flicker of movement, each subtle scent shift, signaling potential danger. At last, they reached a heavily fortified warehouse at the edge of town. Broken windows, boarded doors, and a faint hum of activity within suggested that this was no ordinary hideout. Rogues patrolled methodically, unaware that two of Havermouth's fiercest wolves, bonded and unyielding, were already inside the perimeter. Hunter glanced at Arya, his eyes sharp, calculating. We go in fast. Hit them hard. We take the mastermind before they can react. Arya nodded, the bond thrumming between them like wildfire. Her wolf surged, ready to leap, to fight, to protect. Let us end this, she whispered, voice low, bass lethal in its calm. They moved like shadows, silent, precise stay, slipping past rogue patrols and disabling traps with efficiency born of desperate practice and innate instinct. Every heartbeat was a drum in the tense rhythm of the operation. Inside, the mastermind waited, flanked by a few of the most dangerous rogues. The figure's eyes widened at the sight of Hunter and Arya entering as one. A storm of determination and power. You shouldn't have come, the mastermind hissed, voice layered with cold authority and a trace of fear. Hunter stepped forward, voice steady, eyes blazing. It ends tonight. Your manipulation, your attacks, the blood spilled. Twitt ends now, Arya's claws flexed, her wolf coiling like a spring. The air around her seemed to hum with tension as the rogues lunged. The first wave met her teeth and claws, but she moved like water, striking with precision, twisting, dodging, and sending attackers sprawling. Hunter moved beside her, fangs flashing, muscles coiled like steel springs, taking down each rogue with controlled force and unrelenting power. The battle was fierce but swift, choreographed in a brutal dance of survival. Every strike, every dodge, every growl of defiance carried the weight of their mission. Their lives, the bond pulsed through them, urging coordination, guiding instinct, sharpening reflexes. Finally, only the mastermind remained. Cornered, the figure's kamas cracked, revealing panic beneath. You don't understand, the pack, the town, everything will collapse if I fall. Hunter's softened, just briefly, but his tone remained firm. Havermouth collapses if you continue. Your reign ends tonight. Arya stepped forward, claws at the ready. Eyes locked on the mastermind. Her wolf surged, a tangible force behind her resolve. This is your choice. Surrender or be taken down. The mastermind faltered, calculating, desperation and arrogance wrestling for dominance. In a final act of defiance, They lunged, but Hunter was faster, intercepting with a calculated sweep. Arya struck with precise force, knocking the figure off balance. Together, they immobilized the mastermind, the tension snapping like a drawn bow. The rogues, disoriented and leaderless, retreated into the shadows. Havermouth's streets, for now, were quiet again, the threat contained. But the bond between Arya and Hunter, forged in the crucible of combat, pulsed stronger than ever, unyielding, alive. Hunter's hand brushed Arya's shoulder, grounding her. "We did it," he said. Voice low but resonant with relief and lingering tension. Arya exhaled slowly, her wolf finally settling, heart still racing. "For now," she replied, eyes still scanning the darkened streets. "This isn't over. Not until Havermouth is truly safe, the rogues can't rise again, and in that fragile pause, amid the fog and shadows." The two bonded wolves stood together, unbroken, ready for whatever the night, fate would throw at them next. Chapter 24. Havermouth's reckoning. Dawn broke over Havermouth, but the streets were far from peaceful. Smoke curled lazily from shattered rooftops, a grim reminder of the chaos that had gripped the town. Arya and Hunter stood on a hill overlooking the city, the fog slowly dissipating to reveal the scars left by the rogues' attacks. Their bond pulsed softly between them, a quiet rhythm amid the lingering tension. Hunter's jaw was tight, his eyes scanning the city below. The mastermind may be captured, but this town still trembles, fear lingers, distrust lingers. Arya's gaze hardened. "Then we give them a reason to hope. We show Havermouth that the pack protects, that we are the shield." Not just the claws, her voice carried authority and conviction, the wolf within her rising in strength. They descended into the city, moving with purpose. The townsfolk, cautious and weary, emerged from their hiding places, faces etched with exhaustion and anxiety. Word of the mastermind's capture had spread, but so had the scars of betrayal. Arya stepped forward, her presence commanding, yet approachable. "Havermouth is not lost," she announced, voice carrying over the silent crowd. "We have faced the darkness together, and together we will rebuild. The rogues will not rule this city. The pack stands with you, always." Murmurs of acknowledgement rippled through the crowd. Relief mixed with lingering fear, but the seeds of trust had been planted. Hunter joined her side, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. His eyes met hers, a sealant acknowledgement of the battles fought and the bond that had carried them through. "The rogues will be brought to justice," he added, voice firm, "but tonight we reclaim what is ours. Havermouth is ours to protect, and nothing will take that away," as the townsfolk rallied. Arya felt the full surge of her wolf, strength she had denied, the power she had feared. It flowed through her, uniting with Hunter's, a force that promised protection and dominance over the chaos that had once threatened them. But even in this moment of triumph, the bond pulsed with reminders of the trials yet to come. Secrets remained buried, whispers of rogues still loose, and the fragile trust between humans and wolves required constant vigilance. Hunter leaned closer, voice soft yet insistent. "We face the future together, Arya, no matter what comes." "We fight side by side," Arya's wolf responded, a deep, resonant growl of agreement. "Together," she echoed, determination firming her stance. Above half the sky shifted from gray to a pale gold, light spilling over the city like a promise. Havermouth's streets, though scarred, began to stir with life again. Children emerged from hiding, cautious yet unafraid. The townsfolk tending to the wounded, rebuilding what had been broken. The bond between Arya and Hunter hummed beneath their skin. A steady current of power, protection, and unspoken connection. In that moment, the pack and the city were united. Not by fear or obligation, but by choice, by loyalty. And by the undeniable force of two wolves bound by more than blood or destiny. Teakness were bound by fire, survival, and trust forged in the crucible of chaos. As night approached, Arya and Hunter stood on the hill once more, looking over the town they had saved. The fog had lifted, revealing Havermouth in the full light of day, scarred but alive. "The pack is strong," Hunter said quietly, "but our real test has just begun." Arya nodded, feeling the bond teton. the wolf within her alive and roaring. Then we face it. Together. Always, and with that promise. They descended toward the city, ready to rebuild, ready to protect, and ready to embrace the destiny that had forged them from the ashes of Havermouth's darkest night. Chapter 25. The final sten night fell over Havermouth, the streets bathed in an eerie silver glow from the full moon. Arya stood on the ridge overlooking the city, her wolf coiled beneath her skin, senses stretching into every shadow, every flicker of movement. Hunter's presence beside her was steady, a grounding force, but even he could feel the tension crawling through the air. The mastermind allies had regrouped, hiding in the shadows, their numbers small but desperate and dangerous. Word had spread of Havermouth's renewed defenses, but desperation made enemies reckless. Tonight would decide not only the city's fate, but the strength and survival of the pack itself. Hunter tightened his jaw, eyes narrowing. They TVL strike from the south. I can feel it. Arya, stay close. Trust the bond, T-Guidus. Arya inhaled sharply, her wolf responding, a surge of raw power, instinct, and adrenaline intertwining. I'm ready, she said, voice low as ebby steady, carrying the weight of determination and fire. Let them come. As the first shadows slithered across the streets below, the pack surged into action, rogues, armed and vicious, moved quickly, but the bond between Arya and Hunter allowed them to anticipate attacks, counter movements, and protect their allies. The city became a battlefield, a blur of fangs, bashed claws, and the flash of movement. Arya struck with precision, her wolf guiding her hands and instincts. Each movement was lethal, elegant, calculated. Rogue after rogue fell, their attacks futile against the combined force of the bonded mates. Hunter moved with equal skill, intercepting threats, pulling Arya from danger when necessary, and striking down enemies with measured strength. The air was thick with tension, the clash of forces echoing across the rooftops. Flames from overturned carts and shattered buildings reflected in their eyes, highlighting determination, anger, and a shared understanding. Failure was not an option. Finally, only the mastermind remained, their expression twisted with rage and disbelief. You think this ends here? The figure spat, stumbling as Arya and Hunter approached. Hunter's eyes glimmered with a calm ferocity. It ends tonight. Havermouth is ours to protect, and no one will threaten it again. The final confrontation was swift and decisive. The mastermind lunged, desperate, but Arya anticipated the move, moving with a precision that betrayed her human and wolf instincts simultaneously. Hunter intercepted, fangs bared, muscles coiled. Together, their movements were a seamless choreography, unrelenting and perfect. With a final surge in sound, they overpowered the mastermind, binding the figure with energy and force, ensuring they could no longer manipulate or terrorize the city. The last rogue's threat had been extinguished. Havermouth was safe. Arya sank to her knees, breathing heavily, her wolf finally settling. Hunter knelt beside her, his hand brushing her hair back, eye softening with relief and pride. We did it, he whispered, though the words felt inadequate to capture the weight of their victory. Arya nodded, exhaustion and triumph mingling. We did it, together. The bond pulsed warmly between them, not just a tether of destiny but a lifeline forged in battle. Trust and survival. Above them, the moonlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the city. Havermouth, though scarred, had endured. Its streets whispered of resilience, of hope reborn, and of the unwavering strength of those who chose to fight, not for power, but for survival, loyalty, and love. Hunter's voice cut softly through the night. The pack is stronger now, and so are we, no matter what comes next. We face it as one. Uvria's eyes glimmered, reflecting moonlight and determination. Together, she echoed. And in that shared vow, amidst the ruins and the quiet aftermath, the two wolves, bonded by fate, will in choice and fire, stood ready to face the future, unyielding, unstoppable, and united. Chapter 26. Ashes and rebirth morning arrived over Havermouth like a hesitant promise. The city's streets were quiet now, scattered with remnants of the battle, jarash of burned carts, shattered glass, and the faint scent of ozone lingering in the air. Arya walked slowly through the streets, boots crunching softly against rubble. Her senses attuned to every whisper of life returning to the city. Hunter followed closely, his presence a steadying pulse beside her. He had fought with ferocity the night before, yet in this calm light there was an unspoken relief in his posture. His eyes scanned the horizon, vigilant but softened by the sight of the pack moving among the townspeople, offering protection, guidance, and reassurance. Arya paused atop a low wall, gazing at the sunrise breaking through clouds. The warmth touched her face, a stark contrast to the cold fury and fear of the previous night. Her wolf stirred beneath her skin, not in aggression, but in quiet reflection, a mirror of her own inner shift. This is what we fought for," she whispered. Voice soft but strong. "A city that can breathe again. A pack that stands together." And us. Hunter stepped beside her, eyes locking onto hers. "Us," he repeated. There was no hesitation, no doubt. The bond they shared had been tested in fire, in blood, in unrelenting darkness. Now it thrummed with clarity, living promise neither could ignore. They descended into the heart of the city, moving past recovering townsfolk who offered cautious smiles, grateful nods, or whispered thanks. The wounds of the past night were still visible, but so too was the resilience, unspoken testament that survival and hope could coexist even after devastation. In the center of Havermouth, Arya paused. Memories from the past, fear, betrayal. Moments of quiet loneliness flashed behind her eyes. But they no longer held power over her. They were ash. Remnants of what had shaped her, but not what would define her. Hunter reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally, like puzzle pieces finding their fit after years of searching. "We start from here," he said, voice low, carrying the weight of all they had endured. "From the ashes, we build." Together, Arya drew a deep breath, feeling the bond pulse warmly, not with the pain of conflict, but with the quiet promise of partnership, trust, and love. Her wolf, fully awakened now, hummed beneath her skin, a fierce yet calm presence. She smiled, a small, genuine curve of lips that reflected determination and relief. "Yes," she agreed. Together, they moved through the streets, hand in hand, greeting pack members and townspeople alike. Every step was a reclamation, a statement that Havermouth, its people, would not be defined by fear. The pack was stronger now, bonded not just by blood or duty, but by choice, loyalty, and shared struggle. As the sun climbed higher, the city began to stir with life again, children peeking cautiously from safe corners, merchants cautiously reopening stalls, and townsfolk venturing out to tend to their wounded or clear debris. It was a slow, fragile rebirth, but a rebirth nonetheless. Hunter stopped at a high vantage point overlooking the city. He pulled Arya close, their foreheads touching in quiet intimacy. "Whatever comes next," he murmured, "we face it as one. No secrets, no doubts." "Only a Soji the packs," Arya nodded, feeling the weight of their journey settle into a quiet strength. "No matter what," she whispered, her voice carrying the calm certainty of someone who had survived fire and betrayal, who had fought alongside her mate and emerged unbroken. The wind stirred, brushing through broken streets and battered rooftops, carrying with it a faint scent of renewal. And for the first time since Havermouth's darkest night, the city felt alive, hats whole, breathing, and ready to begin anew. Above these the sky stretched wide and open, sunlight spilling over the ruins like liquid gold. Arya and Hunter stood together, bonded by more than fate. Triquetra were bonded by choice, courage, and a love forged in the crucible of survival. From the ashes, they would rise. Chapter 27. The Mater's vow twilight fell over Havermouth, painting the city in hues of violet and gold. The remnants of battle glowed faintly in the distance, silent reminders of the night's chaos, but for the first time, peace felt tangible, fragile, yet promising. Arya stood atop the highest ridge, her gaze sweeping across the city she had fought so hard to protect. Beside her, Hunter's hand found hers, fingers lacing together with a familiarity born from trials that neither could have imagined. The bond pulsed quietly between them, no longer a source of tension or conflict, but a living connection, vibrant and unbroken. "You've come so far," Hunter murmured, his voice carrying both awe and reverence. "Through everything, you never wavered." Arya turned to him, the fading sun catching the gold in her hair. Her eyes held a storm of emotions, relief, pride, lingering fear, but above all, a newfound strength. "I didn't do it alone," she replied softly. Both of us, we survived because we trusted each other," Hunter S. Wolf growled lowly. A gentle vibration beneath his chest, and he pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Trust," he said. "It has more than survival. It is what makes this U.S." The city below began to hum with life again. Fires were extinguished, streets cleared, and the pack moved among the townspeople, protecting, rebuilding, and offering guidance. Havermouth had endured, but so had its protectors, its bonded mates. Harria's wolf stirred beneath her skin, not in aggression, but in quiet affirmation. Her power, once hesitant and uncertain, now flowed with a clarity and purpose she had never known. Every heartbeat resonated with the bond she shared with Hunter, and every breath she drew felt like reclaiming herself from the shadow of the past. Hunter S. softened. But beneath that softness lay the steel of a leader, an alpha who had faced betrayal, doubt, and near death emerged whole. "I know this bond," he said, gaze unwavering. "It isn't just fate. It is choice, and I choose you. Every day. In every battle, in every breath, Arya felt the pulse of the mate bond surge warmly through her chest, anchoring her in a way nothing else could. Memories of fear, loss, and torment flickered faintly, but instead of pain, they now carried lessons, clarity, and resilience. She stepped closer, closing the space between them, letting her hands rest over his heart. "I choose you too," she whispered, voice steady, carrying the weight of fire and survival. "Not because I have to, but because I want to. Because you've earned it. Because we've earned it." Together, Hunter S. lips curved into a small, triumphant smile. A rare glimpse of relief and joy breaking through the intensity that had marked him for so long. He drew her into a close embrace, and for the first time in years, both felt completely safe in each other's presence, not from danger, but from the uncertainty and pain that had defined their past. The pack gathered quietly around them, a circle of unity and loyalty. Every member bore marks of battle, scars etched with the memories of the night's horrors. Yet their eyes reflected hope and trust. Havermouth was no longer a city under siege, past was a home. A stronghold built on courage, survival, and the bonds of those who would never waver. Hunter knelt, a symbolic gesture of reverence and commitment, and held Arya's hands in his own. "Arya Winters," he said. Voice firm and resonant, mate without partner, and heart of this pack, do you vow to stand with me? Through every shadow and every sunrise, in love, trust, an unbroken bond? Arya's chest rose and fell with a steady determination. "I vow it," she replied, her voice carrying the full weight of her journey, her wolf's affirmation resonating beneath the words. Through every shadow, every sunrise, every trial, together, the bond pulsed brightly between them, visible only to those attuned to its energy, a tether of fire, strength, and undeniable destiny. Around them, the pack felt the shift, the culmination of survival, love, and leadership, forged in fire and blood. Hunter rose, pulling Arya close, and together they looked over the city. From the ashes, they had built not only a city but a life, a bond, and a future neither could have imagined alone. "Together," Hunter whispered. "Together," Arya echoed, their voices carrying across the silent, recovering city. Above them, the first stars appeared, glittering witnesses to the vow of mates, to the promise of love shaped by trials, and to the resilience of those who faced the darkest nights. Giger survived. From that night forward, Havermouth had its protectors, and the bonded mates had found not only each other, but a home, a legacy, and a love forged in fire, choice, and survival. The mate's vow had been made, and for Arya and Hunter, the world, though forever scarred, was theirs to face, side by side.